How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another episode of No Excuses on VTWProductions.com and YouTube.com with your favorite show hosts, Aaron Still.
Marion.
And Volosal, and we're here to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry for the week. Such as it was, there wasn't a great deal of news this week, but we'll do our best to provide you with a show anyway. But first of all, if you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can most easily get in contact with us and talk with us by going to our Discord server, which should be most easily accessed by clicking on the link provided in the show description underneath the archive on YouTube, although I haven't checked if that link still works lately.
I should check it in the goings on because
Yep. I feel like those links seem to die unpredictably at times.
they do. Just every now and again, it'll just up and die, and there's absolutely no warning.
I'll tell you what, if you do hear the show and it doesn't work for some reason, just comment on the YouTube video and we'll see it, because so few people comment on our videos. I still have comments and responses alerts turned on for email alerts.
Yeah, do that.
So I'll definitely see it.
So yeah. So fair warning. And this is going to transition into my week quite nicely. Actually, is I blew away my computer this week because it was long overdue.
You've been trying to keep that thing on life support for the longest time.
It was just developing more and more issues. The Windows Store decided it was just going to up and die because
You were well past the point where I would have scrapped my entire rig and started over.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been, let me think, since I did the processor, replace the processor is when I last reinstalled it. And that was a few years ago now. So yeah, it's fixed a lot of problems that I've been having. It hasn't. Well, I haven't actually tested if it fixed the green screen crash yet, but I haven't had one, so that's something. I need to actually sit down and stress test it, see if it's fixed it. So that means reinstalling Minecraft and cranking up those shaders.
Yeah, well, when that breaks, it doesn't necessarily mean your graphics card or your graphics drivers are the thing that's at fault, though.
Oh, it probably does, actually, because it's a well-known issue with this graphics card model. But if it's been something that's software-related, which it seems like it might be, but no one seems to be able to agree on that, then, yeah. Oh well, science, I guess. So, in on the stream today, I will be playing a bit of Factorio for a couple of reasons. Partly because the factory must grow. And I love this game. But
I was tempted to just go and buy it, even though I don't really have any intention of playing it.
Unfortunately, Factorio is never on sale and never will be on sale, according to the developer. Just going to load up a factory I've been at for a while and just keep on.
In certain situations, that actually makes me more likely rather than less likely to buy it. Because a game like that, that's sort of a gimmick that I'll probably, I'll pick up and I'll muck around with it a little bit once or twice in the span of time that I own it. Those things, the reason I don't buy them is usually because I just tell myself, oh, I'll wait till there's a sale. If I know for a fact there's never going to be a sale, it actually makes me more likely to purchase it.
That's actually a pretty good point. Like, there's a lot of games on my wish list which I'm just sitting on waiting for a sale. But actually now, because there is a sale, and I'm looking at half my wish list because I don't really want that. Maybe I'll play that later.
Yeah, this is how it always goes with sales for me on Steam these days. I'm like, I got everything that I really want.
Yeah.
If something new comes out that I want, I'll get it when it comes out, and everything else just kind of sits on the wish list as stuff people can give me for Christmas or something.
Yeah, or if it comes on super duper discount and I'm looking for something new, I'll try it then.
Yeah, I just don't buy stuff on sales anymore because the odds that I'll actually play them are just so poor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like there aren't games that I would like to play on there, like the Like a Dragon that we mentioned last week.
Shall we talk about in a moment?
But when am I going to have the time? There's so many things to play. It's like the thing which enlightened me that the sale had begun was actually Ina tweeting on Twitter, "Unlimited backlog works begins."
Yes. That's the absolute worst part of the Steam sale is you can buy a bundle of games that, like, it seems like a great buy at like $5 and you get like 10 games in some cases.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
there was a Star Wars bundle a few years ago for $20 that had like 20 games in it.
Yeah, although half of them were crap.
Yeah, but I mean, even the 10 good ones that might have been in there, or at least playable ones, not 80% of them I haven't touched.
Yeah.
And then like the Serious Sam bundle, haven't touched most of those. The so many dang games here that I just haven't touched. Most of the Tomb Raider games that I got in that bundle.
Yeah.
And just a whole lot of one-off stuff in here that I haven't touched.
And Tomb Raider's a very mixed bag as well.
I think that ultimately that's because I don't have like term holidays anymore.
Yeah.
Because that was when I would get my gaming done, but I haven't even taken a regular vacation in goodness knows how long. Approaching 2 years, I think, since I took a vacation.
Yeah, you're sitting on like 5-6 weeks of holiday, wasn't it?
Almost, just about 8 weeks. Just about 8 weeks. I could just like not show up to work for 2 months, or just work 4-day weeks for the rest of the year, or
yeah, whatever.
Yeah, the problem is that there's nobody who can replace me.
Yeah. Until they figure out that they get the potted plants or something to do work, then they'll probably replace you.
Well, I mean, when they end up at the point where they'll be vulnerable to me dragging them to the employment tribunal for not letting me take leave, then they will have to let me take leave.
Yes.
Because in the theory in my contract is that they're not really supposed to let me build up more than 4 weeks. If I do, they're supposed to come and consult me about when I can take a holiday. But since the department that writes the contracts is different to the department that actually manages the staffing, it's a situation where they've allowed me to build up 8 weeks worth of leave. And
hold on, does your company have multiple human resources departments?
What it has is a humongous amount of staff churn, so even the same department can be a totally different department in the span of 6 months.
Yeah.
Also, the human resources department is located in Melbourne, I think.
That explains a few things. And don't live in...
This is where working in a small business or a family business has a perk, and that you do the work because you're the only one that can do it, and you want the company to keep making money, rather than being forced to work through and drudge the company.
On the other hand, though, it means you also never get vacation. Like, at all.
My company used to be run like a franchise, and so we were able to basically do all our own management internally. But they decided that they wanted to centralize all the power into a headquarters in Auckland, which is subordinate to another headquarters in Australia, which is subordinate to a headquarters in Brussels.
Oh, that sounds like a completely efficient system.
Well, I may not get... Yeah. Now to mention it, I may not get vacation proper, but at least all the days I can come home early when I realize there's just nothing going on right now. If I total all the saved hours, I probably get about 2 weeks worth of vacation time out of that.
Yeah, you probably would. Alright. So yeah, it's going to keep chipping away at Satisfactory. As for my week, so yeah, I blew away on my computer, and that took a good solid day. There's still a lot of stuff I really haven't reinstalled yet, namely among them PSO2.
There's no reason to.
No.
Yeah, Ari's just lost his only reason to play it.
Yeah.
And the dress was crap. I'll talk about it in my week.
Oh my. But yeah, it's just... New Genesis ended up being so underwhelming. I just don't care.
Yeah. I bought the entire latest scratch ticket with gold.
Oh no.
Remember that stupidly expensive whatchamacallit I sold?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I sold that, and then I had been doing my weeklies and dailies every day up to then, and just sold everything in my bank.
Yep.
Because that crap ain't gonna be useful when I finally do start playing for serious again. So I just cashed it all out now and just bought out everything on the scratch ticket.
Yeah. They really need to add a bunch of content, fix a lot of the bugs. Actually, I would be their player base. That's the biggest thing.
The thing that needs to be fixed the most, they can't fix, because even if all the garbage in the game is still there that we complained about last time, then there's still nothing to do, and that takes time.
And that is the biggest thing. I'm willing to put up with some bugs and a few little niggles and things like that, but if there's absolutely nothing to do, I'm not sticking around.
Yeah, like do you really want to grind for years at a time at the rate we're going to get 2% more damage?
Not at all. Not at all.
When there is nothing to use it on?
The tragic thing is that I still have a non-negligible amount of enthusiasm to play PSO2 Classic. Like, it's always in the back of my mind, I'd really like to go there and I'd like to finish off the story and see what happens in the end and so on and so forth. But I have a zero interest in playing the new one.
As much as I hate it, we probably should actually take a look at the new Genesis Reddit at some point.
It's a lot of people are mad.
I bet they are.
I've seen more people who are part of like the PSO2 defense force than people who are honestly appraising its failings.
Because that's
like
usually...
most of the people that I see post there are like, "Oh, you just don't understand what PSO2 was like at launch," and this somehow explains all of their failings
and somehow excuses them as well. Yes,
I'll take a rate of. I've seen them at about a rate of 1 to 2 or 3, and I'll take that over most games with because their White Knights are the first people that are going to go complain on the Reddit or go show up on the Reddit. So the fact that we have 25% of the player base probably go in and complain about garbage instead, that's I'll take that. And that also is a big red flag that something's wrong with your game.
We shall see how things fall out there over the next few months. I hope they pull up their socks and get to work, but
I mean, it needed more time in the oven at the very least.
Yeah,
I don't think baking it more in the direction that they were going was going to, like, if you have put salt in instead of sugar, it doesn't matter how long you put it in the oven. It's not going to be sweet when it comes out. I don't think that their core decisions are very good. They've just pruned away too much of what gave the game character.
Yeah, certainly a lot of salt.
I could be persuaded to see it in another way with enough improvement and enough like added content, but it doesn't feel very good, to be honest.
Oh man,
it's sort of like, you know, I would like to play it and I would like to like it, but to me it's sort of like, I feel like it's sort of the opposite of Genshin Impact. Like, I really liked a lot of things about Genshin Impact, but it's China.
Yeah,
so
the core thing behind Genshin Impact I could not like. The heavy gacha focus, but the
I don't feel
gameplay was great.
It was that important. I don't feel like the gacha was that important in the end. Like, once you've got a couple of characters, it's going to take you so long to build up those characters that you don't need to worry about what the gacha's doing.
Yeah.
But regardless, like there was a really strong core game there with some gacha issues. I don't think the core game in PSO2 New Genesis is strong. I think it's just really weak, especially compared to what it used to be. So,
what it could be.
I don't think that you can take that particular core structure and make it good without building, you know, about 200% additional stuff on top of it. This is just not. There's no there. It's empty. It's a hollow shell.
Yeah, it's the Reddit's in an even worse state than we thought. The Reddit's dead.
Oh wow.
Has everybody gone back to the old one?
Probably, but the PSO2 and
blind rage, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's 1 or 2 posts. One's complained about toxicity. One's little bit of white knighting, some fan art and some memes, and then after like 20 posts, it's nothing. It's dead. 1 or 2 upvotes for everything at most. And then so the new Reddit is dead, and apparently the new mechanic they released, the Gigantics, this week that they were hyping up, they scale based on the number of people in the area, but these Gigantics
anywhere.
But so you have to plan to go get them, and if anybody wanders by, it increases the dumb thing's HP.
Oh, joy.
So yes, you could have nearly killed it, and somebody's just like running past, and suddenly it kills you because it's got a gajillion hit points now.
Yeah, it apparently scales to the exact number of players by a percentage HP increase, and if somebody enters the area, they make it harder to kill, and they're on a time limit. So if there's a bunch of level 15s or 12s out there farming or whatever, and they've been reporting people for just playing the game,
Just for walking past.
For leeching, they call it.
Yeah, no.
That was should have seen that one coming. Yeah. Oh man.
Sega.
These all seem like rookie mistakes, though. They don't seem like, the mistakes made by somebody who's actually been running PSO2 for goodness knows how many years.
Yeah.
I know it's a very different type of game, but surely all that experience isn't worth nothing.
Even then, they have years of other companies making these mistakes. They could easily go reference.
So I think that the thing that will make all the difference here is just because of the way these companies are. What matters is how the Japanese fans are reacting. I don't honestly think they give two tosses what the English-speaking fan base cares about.
Yeah.
So if the Japanese are reacting less badly than the English-speaking world, then probably nothing will happen. It will just keep following the same line.
Yeah.
All right. What else did I do for my week then? I played a bit of Yakuza Like a Dragon, which I'm thoroughly enjoying.
It's great. It's for the story stuff anyway.
It's a ride.
How far in are you? What chapter?
I'm only about halfway through chapter. Well, okay, they're doing the heist on the old folks' home.
Okay, so you made it out of.
So you've done that.
Dare I ask why you would pull a heist in an old folks' home?
It's entirely. Yeah, because they're killing the old people.
Yeah, this is the actual serious side of the story where you've got a Yakuza family is
running a ritzy, super high money pay daycare, elderly folks home. What do you call those? Retirement homes.
Retirement home.
And
what they're doing is once they get people in there of a certain age and a certain wealth, is
they just kill them so they can make a slot.
They kill them, make a slot, and just bilk their pension.
Honestly, I thought that was rightly the province of the Cuomo family.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was thinking the exact same thing going through that thing too. So yeah, they'll kill them, pretend they're still alive, and then continue draining their funds and have an open room to let in somebody else.
Yeah. So they can just repeat the process.
Yep.
But while that's going on, you do various other very Yakuza things, such as
the cans.
Yeah, the can minigame's fun. Where you're basically on a bike running around trying to get cans to recycle for pocket change. Because
you escape from the homeless camp and you don't have any of your money anymore. And so you have to take the first job that's thrown at you, and that's go pick up some cans and take them to Recycle Man, and he'll pay you a bit of money. And you do this by racing other homeless people around the streets and trying to ram them to get their cans so that you can take more cans back.
The higher difficulties, it stops being like ride around and get cans, and it just says, let's just do Hobo Demolition Derby. It gets very silly very quick.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've got all that nonsense going on, but as per Yakuza standard, you've got that very serious story going behind it, where it's Ichiban down on his luck. He gets betrayed by his patron. Oh, sorry, his patriarch, I should say, and basically literally gets thrown away in the garbage after getting shot, because of course he did.
Well, he gets shot, falls being thrown in the river, and then he washes up on the shore, and a homeless guy rescues him and drags him off to the homeless camp.
Who just by pure luck happens to be a fully trained and previously registered nurse.
Yeah, so he patches you up.
So, yeah, the story it's pretty good, but as is traditional for a Yakuza game, you're not necessarily there for a fairly good story. You're there for the nonsense. So you've got the Yakuza patriarch who likes to dress up as a baby.
Isn't that a meme from the old?
It was only in one game before, but it's the one side quest people always show. It's the one from 2.
Oh, because it's the screenshot I see of Yakuza more often than any other screenshot.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's the one everybody shows.
And what a lot of people don't mention is once you actually do that side quest, is you get him as a combat summon.
Yeah, there's a app on your phone called Poundmates, and
which is another
you can
what moment, by the way.
So on Ichiban's turn, he can pull out his phone and give a call to a bunch of the side quest characters, and for a fee, they will show up and do their summon.
Yeah, which is usually show up and just wreck face.
I don't know if I want to see that.
Well, the first guy that shows up is this gigantic guy with...
Oh, he's a running character. Gary Buster Holmes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Poundmates company was all his idea. He's a super American, super muscled, super black dude that has big old spiky balls on his fists.
Yeah.
Like, they look like the head of a mace. He's a character that appears in all the extra arena modes and combat challenges and stuff in all the other games, I think.
Yeah. So he just shows up and just starts swinging.
So this is a sort of a venture like Uber?
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, except instead of coming to pick you up, they come and bail you out by pounding on everybody near you.
Yeah. So yeah, that's been an absolute trip. It's been... I'm not exactly sure how far along in the story I am.
You're not very... It's a long story, and a lot of it is going to... If you're doing all the side quests...
Which I am.
It takes quite a while. I'm at chapter 7-ish. So, and I put probably about 20, 25 hours into the game.
Good grief, I haven't had that much free time in the past month.
Yeah, that's over the course of 2 months, but yeah. So, any other... Have you done the crawfish side quest yet?
I have not done the crawfish yet. I think I know where it is, but I haven't done it yet.
If it's not open for you now, it should be open soon.
Yeah, I'm about to bust into the Yakuza boss's compound after
the current side quest batch.
Yeah, because it basically tells you once you reach a point there is, okay, go away, get some gear, come back, and then we'll do this.
The sex toy shop has the best weapons for early game, by the way.
I've noticed that.
There's a lot that I don't want to know about that statement.
No, that's about all there is to say on that thing.
It's not my fault they decided to make Ichiban's best weapon for the first bit of the early game a giant vibrator that has a chance to paralyze.
It is actually a really good weapon, though.
It procs so much.
Thankfully, it could have been a lot worse. It's not a vibrator in the traditional sense. It's more of a massager.
No, it is
the two things.
It is just as bad. It is just as bad as you think it is, Fern. Trust me.
Oh no, I've got it. I'm just trying to drag things out of the gutter before we plunge straight back in again.
It's okay. At least when you get the girl character and you get her sex toy shop weapon, it says magic wand, and I'm like, oh boy, what's this? It's a literal magical girl wand, and it has a chance to charm when she smacks people with it.
I see. Oh no. So yeah, that's Yakuza Like a Dragon. It's nonsense. I am getting used to the turn-based RPG modes.
Okay. Have you bumped it? Have you bumped into the problem with it though? With not random, but the common encounters
where they always spawn in certain places, and if you fight them where they spawn, they just respawn on top of you.
So they respawn like 5 seconds after you get out of combat, and they have a set spawn location.
Yeah.
So
you really run into that, actually. There's a bunch of Kappa statues hidden around town. And the first one you find where there's got an actual guy there, and a couple of subquests in that same spot. Like the Piss Wizard. You do his quest in the same spot as well. So you're trying to line up and take a photo of this Kappa statue, and you're getting these guys who just constantly spawn on your head.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be a problem with the random encounters. You just got to find a way to make your auto attacks as good as you can if you just want to do stuff around the town, and then you can just turn on auto battle and tell them not to use skills.
Yeah, and just bop them away.
Yeah,
although
the best way.
The idea of the homeless guy being a wizard class.
I actually have him as a bodyguard with a katana right now, because I'm explore the town mode, and I don't want to sit there and wait on him to cast all his spells.
Yeah, because that takes a while.
So I just have him in that mode.
But my pigeons.
Yeah, the pigeon raid. Pigeon Raid is really good. So is Flame Breath.
Flame Breath, because it's a cone attack, is usually the first thing I'll do in the combat. I try and get that out as quick as possible so I catch all the enemies while they're still bunched up. Which usually works.
Yeah, when Adachi rejoins, he's already back in your party. When you get Adachi back, he eventually gets a skill that lets him just grab an enemy by the legs and spin him in a big circle and knock him into everybody around him.
Oh, that
does a ton of AoE damage.
Yeah, his charge, which is just a column attack, is.
Yeah.
He's targeting someone at the back of the group and off he goes.
The only problem is you have no idea what because the battles happen in the environment when they start, and there's no battle transition really. It loads into the exact same area of the map. The map doesn't reload, even though your characters pull out weapons and there's a little screen fade to switch it into RPG mode.
Yeah, once
you don't know what
illusions kick in.
Yeah, so sometimes you don't know what will stop your character from going through it and what they can just barrel through and break, like benches or little medians in the road with a tree on them or something.
Yep.
And you have no idea what attacks are going to get blocked by what. And this is one of the things that drives me insane.
One of the big things I have found is if your character runs past something light that's laying on the ground, they'll kick it into their opponent. But half the time it's they'll kick a traffic cone and it'll just bounce off a wall.
Yeah, or they'll sometimes pick stuff up, but it's not consistent at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no idea how to actually use that. It's just sometimes there's a bonus, and I hate when they do it sometimes because those weapons don't have the proc effects that your main weapon might.
Yep.
So if they grab a bicycle on their way to go clobber something, and you have the aforementioned paralyzing wand, you'll pick up the bike and clobber somebody with it instead.
Yeah. Thankfully, when they're kicking something small in, that doesn't take their attack turn, at least.
Yeah.
It's like they're running towards the enemy and they just stop to kick a traffic cone for no.
Yeah.
Which is actually kind of funny half the time. But yeah, it's a very weird game. I haven't run into any of the mini games like Dragon Kart yet.
It's way in the north. You got to go through a whole lot of high-level areas. It's in the park, at the back of the park, on the water line.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not quite ready to go up there. I went.
Oh, I'm not ready to go up there either.
Yeah.
I can't fight anything up there. You have to dodge all the enemies and up there to weasel your way through the park.
Yeah, no, thank you. I tried to go up there because you get the correspondence school up there.
Oh, yeah, that's a bit south of it.
A little bit
south of the park.
The enemies aren't quite as tough there, but they're tough enough.
Yeah. When you get to about level 17, there is a singular scuba diver that has an absurd amount of HP that will respawn. That's level 20. And if you go just clobber him over and over again, you'll get a ton of EXP, I found out. He's right by the Dragon Cart people.
Okay.
Just to the left of it.
Which transitions us nicely into Sujimon. Oh dear.
I love Sujimon. The Sujidex is the best thing ever.
Let's just make its whole big catalogue of the various creeps and weirdos you find. And the very first one you actually encounter before you encounter, well, he's basically a walking Pokemon reference. The Professor.
Oh, yeah.
It's
all a Pokemon reference.
Yeah, everything that Professor says is a Pokemon reference.
Yeah, you pick one of your starter Sujimon to get your deck started.
Yeah, you just beat up. There's guy wearing green, guy wearing blue, guy wearing red. Pick one and beat him up.
And then it's like, never mind, I'll just have you beat them all up.
Yeah, because you two, you join in as well. It's fine.
And it's retroactive, so if you do a side quest that has a unique monster like the Piss Wizard, you'll get that in the Sujidex.
Oh, nice.
After you finish the Sujidex quest.
Okay, that's good to know.
But it's just a Pokedex.
None of this sounds like it's good to know. All of this sounds like it's deeply horrifying.
Also, yes. It's very Yakuza.
Yep. And if you need to make money, go play poker.
Yes.
And just know the AI is dumb as a bag of bricks.
Hooray for dumb AIs. Although I did, I tried the Shogi, and I have no idea absolutely how to play Shogi.
Oh, no. If it's like every other Shogi challenge in Yakuza, they will have hidden in other minigames the ability to spend the points from those minigames instead of on decent gear. you can buy shogi autoplay points basically that'll make you make the optimal move, so you can cheese the Chivo for shogi.
So there's no reason to actually play shogi. You just cheese shogi.
Yeah, because number one, no Westerner is going to know how to play shogi, and number two, the shogi's really hard.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of like chess, but not really.
Yeah, but you wouldn't make a chess mini game inside your game and then tell people to go beat a computer at it.
No, especially one that's actually really good at it and deliberately doesn't make mistakes.
So usually there's a way to unlock tickets to give you optimized play for a whole match, and it'll just tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And you can just cheese the achievements in like 5 minutes. Go play Mahjong. Go kill yourself. I hate myself.
No.
I still have oh man. I still have PTSD over Mahjong.
But yeah, it is a great game though. The only really big thing I think it's lost is just Ichiban shows emotions, and he's a bit of a goof.
Yeah, I actually think this is okay. Kiryu's stoic force of nature presence was kind of run out of gas. It didn't have anything else it could really do for the series.
Yeah.
Because Kiryu's not a person, he's a force of nature.
Basically, yeah, and even when he's doing something completely ridiculous, he's doing it completely stone-faced.
Yeah, when people talk about him in this game, they don't reference any of the things he did. They reference him as this monster that if it shows up, it's just going to kick your butt.
Yeah.
Your only option is to flee. You will not beat it.
To be fair, he did kind of earn that reputation at least.
Yeah, he does throw people off skyscrapers and somehow they survive.
Yeah,
because he doesn't kill
don't
people.
ask questions. I'm just waiting for Majima to turn up.
He's in his 50s at that point in the story.
Oh, that doesn't matter.
It makes me feel good to see a game treat some 50-year-olds as though they're monstrous, physically tough super beings instead of some kids.
Even if they do stop to complain about their backs at the end of a fight.
Because it makes me feel not as bad getting older.
Yeah. But look at these guys. They're still out there kicking ass.
Yeah. Never mind, they're probably superhuman to begin with.
Well, yeah.
Well, I mean, the normal JRPG standard is that once you hit 20, you're an old person who's practically dead.
Yeah, that's at that point you just immediately turn grey, and your life of a protagonist is over. But yeah, definitely recommend Like a Dragon. It is an absolute ride, and I'm barely even scratching the surface of it yet. Just, yeah, be aware that things get silly. Really, really silly.
Well, it's Yakuza.
Also, I've made it my mission to collect all the Monkey Ball creatures out of the Crane games.
Yeah, I think you have to collect all the Crane game monsters for one of the in-game Chivos.
You do. You need to get everything. I'm trying to figure out what some of them is, because they've got a bunch which are usually like references to Sega games, like you can get a Monkey Ball character or Opa Opa or something like that. And then you got these really weird ones, like it's Salary Man Cyborg Cop thing.
There are some plush series and stuff in Japan that will sometimes license slots in the in-game UFO catchers. So any of them I don't know, like the penguins and stuff, I'm like, those are probably from a third-party company in Japan.
Yeah, well, there's a handful of generic ones in there as well, but there's some odd picks. They haven't got any waifu characters in there that I've noticed yet.
Well, I think that would be sort of breaking theme a little bit somehow.
A little bit.
Yeah,
not quite silly enough.
There are waifus on the ads on the side of buildings, though.
Yeah, there are real-world ads in the game, I think. I think those are ads for Japanese products.
Yeah. Although no one since has pointed out that Ichiban is named after a beef bowl restaurant. They do make fun of his hair constantly, though.
No, they call out that he's named after a beefball restaurant indirectly early on, like in the first chapter.
Yeah, because as his name would catch, he wanders off to get a beef ball after talking to him.
Yeah, and then his last meal before his time skip in jail is at a beefball restaurant, and he comments on it.
Yeah. I still wonder at this point, why hasn't he gone to get his hair fixed?
I don't know. Well, you get thrown in a homeless camp. Yeah. Stuff was moving kind of fast.
Yeah, he comes out of jail. He's immediately has his hair ruined by an incompetent stylist, and then he just sticks with it.
It's less of an incompetent stylist. He wanted a haircut from the late 80s, early 90s in the year 2020.
And she had no idea what it was. So he ends up with this giant... I don't even know what the hell you'd call that.
They had a name for what it was supposed to be, and it wound up not being. Yeah, but I forgot.
Some kind of really shaggy afro thing.
The thing that makes him look like a mad scientist that had his hair electrified.
Yeah, so everyone just says that guy in the purple suit with the weird hair.
Isn't it a red suit?
I don't know. It's closer to pink than anything else, I think. It's not burgundy. That would be Edgeworth territory. Which is actually a weird thing. Like, as soon as he finds a proper place to live, his suit goes from completely ruined and shabby to immaculate again.
Well, here's
dude, this is a red coat.
It is incredibly bright.
I mean, it's a deep red. I'll post it in live show chat.
Maybe I've just got my color setting. It's that weird because he looks very pinkish.
Yeah, I've always thought that thing was red.
Yeah, that's basically my week. Oh, actually, there is one other thing I'll quickly talk about, and that's the demo for Monster Hunter Stories. The second one. Mostly because I want to point out just how absolutely ridiculous Baby Kulu Yaku looks.
Well, he's a baby. He doesn't have much choice.
He hasn't figured out that gravity exists, and his enormous head is prone to falling over. As far as the gameplay goes, though, it's pretty much just picks up where the first one left off. He gives you a few more options for what you can do. Like, the first one, all your special attacks were restricted to an attack type. Whereas when you get a special attack now, you can either pick if you want it to be a speed, power, or technique version of that attack.
I can understand that change because the alternative sounds a bit constricting. Like, you would end up with a lot of situations where you could use a special attack, except it would be totally unfavorable to do so.
Yeah, it was fine on the monsters because if you're using a power monster to attack a speed monster, then it's not going to matter anyway. You're going to get stomped. So you'd swap that monster out. It doesn't matter. But on the hunter, or on the rider, I should say, yeah, you're going to want all those options, especially for the gunlance, because I played a little bit with that. And its gimmick is it does not build the super gauge naturally. It'll only do it off those special attacks. Basically, whenever you spend ammo. The gunlance is actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, I watched Rage Gaming's quick review of the weapon mechanics and
much shrieking.
It was Cotton doing it. It wasn't
okay.
Josh.
So the shrieking was kept to an acceptable level.
Yeah, more or less. But yeah, he seemed pretty enamored of the concepts behind the gun lance compared to most of the other weapons.
Yeah, the hunting horn is weird, and the first game actually had a big problem with the hunting horn. Whereas basically you do your attacks in a certain combination. Usually it's like you do 2 power attacks in a row, that triggers the song. Or one of them, or whatever the song on the horn is. But if you were skill locked, it would nullify your song as well. You couldn't use it. And that was a big part of using the hunting horn. It was it did a little bit less damage otherwise. So yeah, I don't mind the English voice acting for the most part. The first game, everyone spoke in what they just call Monster Hunter language. Which it's just kind of random merbles and burbles.
It's the linguistic version of bioenergy.
Yeah. Like, it sounded like a language, but it wasn't actually a language.
Well, I mean, so it's like Okami.
Yeah, kind of like that. Except maybe a bit less rubber chickeny.
Hey, don't you knock Okami language?
Some of the characters in that had the funniest burbles. Right. Okami was fantastic.
Still, after all this time, one of my favorite games of all time.
Where's my Amaterasu doggo skin? Oh, Capcom. GIF.
There were rumors that they were going to make another Okami game, although those rumors have been persisting for a long time in one form or another. But
yeah,
if they do, maybe you'll be able to get your Palamute to look like Amy.
That'd be nice. Like, you had Okami 2, which was, Amy's cute, adorable puppy son travels the world and kills a bunch of children. He doesn't mean to. Like, one falls off a waterfall. How are you supposed to stop that? As a puppy. And then suddenly you're on the moon, because I guess that happens. A lot of the story is actually figuring out, what the hell that big space eyeball from nowhere was. And yeah, so one of the kids actually comes from the moon. For reasons.
Well, it doesn't seem to be all that uncommon to come from the moon in Okami's universe.
Yeah, there was a lot of that going on, I suppose. But yeah, there was murmurs of a proper Okami 2, but that's never really come to pass at any point. We shall see, we shall see. I'm going to leave my week at that. Oh, what have you been up to?
What can I say? Okay, so this is an ogre is kicking my butt. The 4th Guda Guda event has begun, and it's got some pretty serious bits in there. It feels in tone quite a bit like Guda Guda 3, in that the story being told is essentially fairly serious, but everything that happens in the process of telling that story is absurd.
Right.
So the usual Guda Guda gang pretty much dicking around with some artifact they found in the Wandering Sea, because that's obviously a good idea. They have no idea what it does, so they resort to hitting it, basically, in order to try and get it to do something.
That's probably the second dumbest thing you could do. First dumbest being eat it.
But I don't believe that they tried to eat it, but they may have suspected that there was food inside, and that might be why they were hitting it.
That tracks.
But this, through a series of ridiculous events, basically creates a singularity.
Again.
Yes, again. Essentially, the device was a gift from Sion's father, which was basically a type of simulator designed to perfectly conduct thought experiments by creating a sort of parallel pocket universe that has all of the things in it that you speculate for your thought experiment, and so that you can see them play out in real time. But having done this, well, Guda Guda happens, basically, and it creates a singularity wherein basically the thing that is most apparent to you is that multiple possible versions of Nobunaga have all appeared and have taken the place of the generals of the Warring States period in Japan. So basically the Warring States is happening, except every general is Nobunaga.
That sounds completely safe.
So basically, you found the Chaldea clan, and you basically are trying to unite Japan under your rule in order to bring the thought experiment to an end, so that the system will shut down, because the emergency shutdown obviously doesn't work, because emergency shutdowns never work. So yeah, that's the basic premise, and of course there is actually a more malevolent force at play, and I haven't played the second half of the event because the time lock is just being undone this afternoon, so I'll probably take a real crack at it tomorrow. But yeah, it's been quite a fun event. They've managed to find a way to make the grinding less feeling like you're not accomplishing anything when you're grinding event currency, because that's typically the feeling, by simply making the QP reward for every quest, every grind free quest quite hefty. Like at present, I get some like 200k QP for every free quest clear, which that's not a humongous amount, but it makes it worthwhile for something other than, oh well, you're just getting currency to spend at the shop. It means that you're basically acquiring something that is universally needed and universally useful all the time. So yeah, the event is mostly structured the way the way a typical event is. There's no mission list to grind through. There's just regular story missions, and they have really committed to the implementing of storyline NPCs that you can take as supports have CEs now. The way that this was implemented in the fourth Lost Belt was that the CE would be a 50% starting NP charge, 50% NP charge rate one, if I recall correctly, which made those NPCs at least usable. In this case, what they've done is that where they are available, they will always be equipped with a event relevant CE. So if there are no notable currency drops, they will be equipped with a CE that basically doubles their attack power for the quest, meaning that they're always a really favorable choice simply due to their sheer output. And if there is currency to be earned in that story quest, they will always be equipped with the one that is the most beneficial for earning currency. So you don't immediately ignore them anymore. Of course, once you get to farming, they're not available, but once you get to farming, you're going to be looking for your fastest number of turns to clear a stage anyway, so it wouldn't be relevant. But yeah, I think it's a distinct improvement over the previous paradigm where NPC supports were always ignored because they were useless. But yeah, I think that's a distinct improvement. I enjoyed the event generally speaking. Kagetora is a relatively cool character. She's quite interesting, although she's a bit crazy. She's doesn't have she's one of those individuals who I suppose is like the typical person that you would expect to possibly develop a reality marble. That is to say, she doesn't have the common sense of a human being. She's just too strong. As a warrior, she's too strong and just doesn't understand people as a result. So everything she does is an imitation of humanity. And so she has a pretty rough childhood because she's viewed as sort of demonic and unnatural. But she got crazy eyes, basically. She got a severe congenital case of crazy eyes. And is otherwise quite a fun character because she doesn't have the same sensibilities as normal people, and so will embark on sort of ambitious military conquest plans without possibly thinking that she could ever fail, because, you know, in her mind, it's ridiculous that anybody would be able to stand up to her in combat. And for the most part, it turns out that that's true, because she's just a prodigy at combat. I mean, Uesugi Kenshin does have the reputation of being the strongest of all of the Warring States generals in history. In that period of Japanese history, but she is famous for one other thing, other than, you know, her mighty warrior prowess and her virtue as a Buddhist. The other thing that Uesugi Kenshin is most famous for is dying on the toilet.
Oh no!
Yeah. So this gets brought up obliquely many times in the story. Like, characters will just sort of always casually reference the toilet. But yeah, that was how Kenshin died, and historically, I think it's generally regarded that it was probably some kind of bowel cancer or stomach cancer or something that was actually the cause of death. But yeah, he did die on the toilet, and of course, Uesugi Kenshin is traditionally regarded as having been male, but in Type Moon as female, although the justification is better, since it's actually been historically quite a popular niche theory that Kenshin was actually a woman due to having a very sort of secretive, private nature and always calling in sick once a month with stomach cramps. No matter what he was doing, what campaign he was on, he would always call in sick once a month, like clockwork, because of stomach cramps. But then again, he did have stomach cancer, so it's sort of hard to tell. But regardless, it's sort of amusing to see the Nasuverse gender bend somebody who might actually have secretly been the other sex. But yeah. At any rate, that event is halfway through at this point, and the back half is still to come. And I don't know what's next up. I think that what's coming at the moment is the anniversary that everybody's looking forward to. Since there's going to be a bunch of St. Quartz up for grabs, there's going to be another GSSR. There's going to be a few bits and pieces changed here and there that people are looking forward to.
Another big overhaul.
Most of the overhauls we've gotten ahead of schedule. They've already been done for us, which I think is great. One of the few good things about being on the North American server. But yeah, it's I think summer should be coming soon. I think the summer rerun. So I really liked the summer event last year. It was very fun. The death march of maxing out all your Dojin points was not so fun, but the event was quite fun. But yeah, at any rate, so that's FGO. I played some Monster Hunter. I'm relatively satisfied with my armor build right now. I've as usual I build a very defensive one. So I really should build an offensive one as well. Although offensive builds with the Greatsword are very hard to build because basically the only way to build a strong offensive build with the Greatsword is to pump your stats. Unlike most other weapons, unlike a lot of other weapons, let's say, there aren't so many mandatory skills. Like for instance, if you're using the bow, you're obliged to have certain skills in your build for any sort of effectiveness, simply because you need to be able to get that extra charge, you need to be able to get that extra power shot or whatever. And you need to have the stamina to actually fuel all of that play. So you have to get a certain amount of constitution and a certain amount of stamina surge and so on. You get really pigeonholed into certain skills, and there is not much build flexibility outside of that. But in the case of the Greatsword, you've got a lot of build flexibility, but to build an offensive build, you basically have to stack tons and tons of like attack gems and that type of thing. So you're going to be looking for weakness exploit and attack up and that sort of thing. You basically just have to farm up the very best in decorations for your slots. So it's onerous, and you will, shatter like glass when you get hit, which is not really what I'm fond of, which is why I always go for the defensive build, since they've added so many additional ways to get not invincibility frames, but rocksteady frames for your greatsword attacks. Like a lot of the switch skills have basically got weaker or less flexible attacks in exchange for them having rocksteady frames, so the greatsword is not always in a situation where you're going to land like 2 good hits in a fight and everything else is going to be chipping the monster down, unless you're already at the level of almost perfect play. Because that was sort of the thing with the greatsword, is that if you wanted to be effective with the greatsword, you needed to already know all of the patterns of the monster like the back of your hand, because otherwise you would be doing the first hit of your combo over and over again. Because getting both hits of that true slash to hit is no mean feat. But it was the only option to do damage on par with other weapons. So in this case, the switch skills enable you to use other builds that have advantages, like having extra rocksteady frames, additional maneuverability to enable you to reposition quicker, abilities that do more damage while you've got red health, and that sort of thing. And by red health, I mean healing health. So you've recently taken a hit, so your position with the Rise Greatsword compared to the World Greatsword is that in a lot of builds you are looking to get into your rock steady frames, take a hit, and then unleash your third in the combo. So you are doing it at maximum possible damage output, and then it actually gives values to skills like I can't remember what it's called. The one that gives you extra damage when you've recently taken a hit and you've got red health. There's a skill like that. This was basically useless before because you don't want to get hit, but since you are actually utilizing your rock steady frames to deliberately take hits so that you can increase your damage, that actually becomes much more viable. And for an immobile heavy hitter build like a greatsword, this is actually sort of a very ideal way of play. So you're pretty much always relying on your wire bugs to give you movement and your rock steady frames to get your damage out. And building tanky is really to your advantage from an offensive standpoint with a greatsword now, because it allows you to more often stand in the way of damage to get those big hits out. So it opens up a lot more build diversity because you're talking about how am I going to do this toss up between the frequency of hits and the power of those hits, because you can build for the old style greatsword where everything is about landing those couple of enormous, like 1500 damage hits in a fight. Or you can alternatively build very defensively now in Rise and land 4, 5, 600 damage hits many times in a fight, simply by being tanky enough to take that damage to the face. And I was able to experience this firsthand in a fight with a Rajang that I fought one evening this week, where normally Rajang just absolutely schools me because I'm so slow, and he's a crazy monkey. He's always moving. His hits do a humongous amount of damage. He moves around a lot. His weak points can be quite hard to hit. There's a lot of things against you with the greatsword against Rajang when played in the world style. When I switched over to a new style to try it out, using all the new abilities from Rise, I took him apart using a really tanky build and lots of rock steady frames in the attacks, because I could just wait for him to take his to do his big attacks. Oftentimes he would move through me, and one of the advantages of Rage Slash over True Charge Slash is that you can actively redirect the direction that you are attacking very late in the process. So I can actually charge Rage Slash, have Rajang hit me, pass through me while dealing the hit, and then flip my direction and slap him in the butt as soon as he passes me with a fully charged third combo strike. So you've got a lot more flexibility to play with when it comes to your abilities in Rise compared to World. I think the greatsword has really benefited a great deal. And I just missed my carve because I got stuck with a full item box. Great. Anyway, so having fun with that. What else? I watched a couple of movies over the past couple weeks. The first movie I watched was with the assistance of Honest Bob. I watched the FGO Camelot movie. It is pretty much as appalling as everybody said it was. It is as disappointing as everybody said it was. It's a very poor movie. Very poor movie indeed. It's almost hard to describe it because it's so mediocre in so many ways. It's everything about it is badly executed. The pacing is really sloppy. Lots of stuff has been cut for no real reason other than to save time. The storytelling in general is just so rocky and inconsistent that the moments that are supposed to be really dramatic just don't carry the weight that they were supposed to. And the dramatic moments are just not not as dramatic as they should be. Like it's just told really poorly. It's animated really poorly. Like the animation in the Babylonia series is head and shoulders above the animation in this movie, which is just inconceivable to me. Like I don't understand how they managed to screw it up this badly.
Considering they spent like 80% of the animation in the Babylonia series on Ishtar's ass.
Well, to be fair, that I don't think that that's strictly true, because the only thing that they needed to do was put, a couple of frames on screen for a longer time. So there's actually less animation work involved in the cheesecake.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have Tiamat who's in 3D and Gorgon who's in 3D the whole time too. Those probably took more of the budget.
But being the way the singularities are, what you're looking for is those big set piece moments to be beautifully animated, right? Super dramatic and super well animated. And every time I compare one of those moments from Babylonia to Camelot, Camelot comes off not just looking worse, but looking almost insultingly bad. Like, I mean, let's just get this out front. They cut the Air Arash scene entirely. No such scene takes place.
Right.
That's like the most memorable comedic relief moment probably in the entire game.
And it just doesn't exist. There's a lot of stuff like that. A lot of little moments that people were fond of and that we're looking forward to see just don't exist there. Period. They're not there. They're not alluded to. The story is rewritten so they never happened.
It's too silly, get rid of it.
No,
yeah, there's very little in the way of lightness or comic relief. The whole thing is just, depressing the entire way through. And it's a story that needs those couple of bright moments of comedy relief. Like, part of the reason why the Air Arash scene is so famous is because the rest of that story is very... You've got your sort of balls to the wall in a bad situation the entire time. And it's the first singularity that you go to where it's not really an adventure anymore. You are definitely on the back foot and losing the entire time until you win. Everything is sort of like a last desperate gasp to try and seize victory. And so the comedy relief helps that. So 100 Personas is cut entirely from the story. Tota is cut entirely from the story. The whole subplot about trying to keep the villagers running when it's so hard to supply them with food, and that Tota becomes part of the solution to that. The nature of the villagers' subsistence is just completely sidestepped. The village is just a location. Everything about it is bad. It's almost a waste of time me trying to say specifics about why it is bad, because every part of it is bad. If you look at the way, say, what Babylonia does a lot of is sort of like the Great Farewell scene, where a servant will have their last big dramatic last stand situation, and no matter which way it goes, it's always very, very dramatic and beautifully animated. So you've got Leonidas's last stand at the gates of Uruk, and you've got
Ushi's right along with him.
Ushi's 8-boat leap, where she uses her FGO Noble Phantasm, and one of her Heroic Spirit's other Noble Phantasms that we never see in FGO uses them back to back, and basically stops Gorgon in her tracks with it. Like those big scenes, like they're really great. They're really memorable. It's guaranteed that somebody went and grailed Ushi after watching that scene. There is no such scene in the entire movie of Camelot, and there is one scene where it is attempted, and it's really, really weak. It's like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess this is the best in the movie so far, and it's sort of at the climax of the movie, except that it still kind of sucks, because compared to, like, it's sort of like the big last ditch Noble Phantasm attempt to stop the incoming ray of doom from the sky.
So that one.
It's like, if you compare it to Quetzalcoatl using her sort of secret Noble Phantasm to try and stop Tiamat, and the amount of sort of build up and drama associated with that last big drop from the heavens, and the sort of the symbology that they roll into that to sort of like allude to Quetzalcoatl's background as having arrived on the meteor that killed the dinosaurs, and how she can now deploy that as part of her legend. And then you compare that to what happens in Camelot, and it's just like, oh well, you didn't give any dramatic build up to this. We didn't attach any real seriousness to this series of events. You've just sort of done it, and it's over now, and now we're going to move on. Like, the whole thing was really limp-wristed. It was a really, really bad movie. Real disappointment. And honestly, after watching it, I'm inclined to basically back off on what I said, that I thought the movie would be a reasonable format for Camelot, because it became clear to me that the stuff that they were cutting for runtime was undermining the story way too much. It was not what it could have been. Like I can envision a one core anime that told the story much better. There was no need to carve it up like this. This is going to go down in history as a serious disappointment. People love the second part, but the second part was also done by a totally different studio. Well, that's not strictly true. It was done by the same studio, but it was not done by their outsourced team. If you watch through the credits of Camelot Movie 1, the entire animation staff are all Korean.
Okay.
It wasn't done in-house. It was farmed out to their Korean animation studio. They're subcontractors, basically, that happen to be under the same umbrella company. It's just... I would say that as somebody who really loves FGO and has put a lot of time and money into it, it feels like nobody working on the movie liked FGO. Like, there's no love in it anywhere. You can tell that the people that created these scenes didn't love them. It's not like the scene where Ushi takes on Gorgon in Babylonia. You can tell that the people creating that scene loved that scene and wanted everybody to think that Ushi was super cool in that moment. Whereas there is no such equivalent thing in Camelot for anybody, not heroes or villains. It's like they just don't care what the audience thought about it at all.
Well, on top of that, in Korea, didn't FGO have a major flub by not disclosing lower gacha rates at some point and lost a ton of players because of it?
It was a huge scandal. The Korean server is dead. Nobody plays there. But, it's... The whole movie was a horrible disappointment from top to bottom. There was no part of it that I liked. In every way, it was disappointing and inferior to just playing through the Singularity. But, people have had very, very praiseworthy stuff to say about the second part, but I think that that's because the second part is being handled the way Babylonia was. Like, it's based around the set pieces and building those up and executing them in a way that it really pays off on what the fans want. And that's the thing that seems to not be really properly understood by the first movie, is that you are making this movie for the fans. If you cannot love it the way that they do, you can't make the movie good. The whole concept of making anime for FGO is fan service. Period. End. You need to be able to love it, otherwise they won't love it. And Babylonia does it quite well. Babylonia's got a lot of problems, particularly with the flat writing for the protagonist, where you needed to do some writing for the protagonist, dude. All you needed to do was choose all of the alternate conversation choices and you would have had a really engaging main character. But they chose all the bland ones instead. The pacing is also a disaster in Babylonia and all that. But when it came to pleasing the fans, to putting those big moments up in lights that everybody wanted to see, they nailed it. They nailed it every time. And Camelot didn't nail any of them. So, deeply disappointing. The other movie that I watched was the Demon Slayer movie, Mugen Train.
A lot of people have been telling me to go watch that.
I consider the shonen anime movie to be a separate genre of movie. because there are certain things that they've got to do. They have to connect to the part that happens beforehand, they have to connect to the part that happens afterwards, and they have to... They always tell a certain type of story, which is basically an elongated episode.
Yes.
The thing with Mugen Train is, I think that it's basically the closest to a perfect execution of that very narrow genre that I've ever seen. Which is not to say that it's got a humongous amount of value as an anime movie. Like, a purpose-built anime movie will be a better piece of art, most likely. Like, you're not going to compare it favorably with Miyazaki films or with something like Summer Wars or whatever. You know, things that were made to be movies. This is made to be a really long episode, like a short arc type of thing. But within the scope of what a shonen movie tries to do, this was as close to perfect as I've ever seen. Not sure that it was perfect. There are still a few very minor niggles that I think are a bit iffy. And there are some what you could accuse of being pacing issues. And I've seen some people accuse there being pacing issues, but the things that they think are pacing issues, I think are fine based on the time frame. Like, I feel like the movie was pitched perfectly to me personally, and by that I mean I watched the whole series of Demon Slayer, but I watched it some time ago and I didn't rewatch it immediately before the movie, so I was sort of like mostly familiar with all of the characters and the techniques and their positions in society and their attitudes in a general sense, but I wasn't looking for a bolt-on next episode because I didn't. It's been a while since I watched the last episode of the anime, and I wasn't. You know, it didn't demand that I remember all of the stuff that I needed to remember instantly. So it eases you back into the universe that you've been away from for a little while, and it doesn't. It also doesn't insult your intelligence by deploying a whole mountain of exposition that a fan would already know.
You got to get a good balance there.
Yeah, I feel like they have got a good balance there. They don't expect you to know everything right off the bat like you just binged the entire series, and they don't give you a whole bunch of exposition that they've already given in the series. It's executed really, really well. It ends almost as many times as Return of the King does, but I feel like it all comes together quite well. It's got a lot of emotional punch when it wants to use emotional punch. The drama is really good. I'd say that it's I don't think that it's significantly better in terms of technical aspects than the series, but the series also blew most of other anime series in history out of the water on technical level.
Oh, it's a shonen by UFO table.
Like, it's sort of there's not much gap between the movie and the series, but that's because of the series being great, not the movie being bad. But yeah, it's for anybody who like seriously watched Demon Slayer and seriously enjoyed it, I can definitely wholeheartedly recommend the movie. It's way better than any of the Bleach movies. It's way better than any of the Naruto movies. It's way better than the Dragon Ball Z movies that I've seen. As far as shonen movies go, it is the best example of its kind. And I think that it's actually based on an arc from the manga and has been executed with the sort of the correct pace and amount of information for a movie format.
Yeah, and unlike a lot of other shonen movies, it actually does matter in the story.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a thoroughly enjoying way to spend a couple hours. I can definitely recommend it to anybody who likes Demon Slayer because it does have a lot of the real punch to it that people like from their shonen. And I think that the other impression that I came away from it with, like on a sort of emotional level, was this is the reason why Western comics are dead. Like I've drifted 100% away from all Western media at this point. Like I don't consume any anymore. Period. And that's largely because I view Western media as having adopted this pretty grotesque sort of post ironic milieu where nothing is taken seriously and there's no optimism or heroism to be found anywhere anymore.
Yep.
It's sort of it's the difference between like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. Lord of the Rings is always all about heroism and the good things to be found in humanity, and that what humans can aspire to when they are good, when they pursue virtue, when they act in a way that is dignified and heroic. Game of Thrones is all about the very worst aspects of humanity and reveling in those. But that's all of Western media now, and Western comics in particular, having been taken over by wokeism, are very, very much examples of this. If you look at the sales figures, when they include manga alongside Western graphic novels, yeah, comics are a joke now. From the last time I saw one of these things get posted on Twitter, Demon Slayer itself was like the top 17 slots of the top 20, and there were no Western comics.
I could believe that.
Because what is being produced in like the shonen space in Japan has pretty much supplanted what was previously the superhero comic, because superhero comics ceased to talk about things that were good. The Western pop culture media no longer promotes the virtuous, promotes heroic virtues, that type of thing. It's all like this, sarcastic, post-ironic garbage that basically wears away at the human soul, because what it tells you is this nihilistic thing that nothing really matters. Whereas because of the way Japanese culture to some extent has managed to be communicated into modernity in little ways, they still have this sort of underlying spirit of the intangible things are the most important things, which is completely bled out of Western media. So,
considering that used to be one of the big themes of Western comics before.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at a figure like Superman or like Captain America, without intangible things being the most important things, those characters have no value. But if you look at what has been done to those characters in recent years, like, number one, they either don't get any billing, or number two, they're villains now.
Yeah, Superman tends to spend a lot of time in Villain Town.
They tried to make... Okay.
Go on. No, you go on.
Oh, they tried to make Captain America a villain. In fact, they tried to sell him as actually working for Hydra, and they had to backpedal on it super hard when they realized the backlash they were getting. They didn't think it would be as bad as they thought it would be, I guess. They made it so that...
Yeah, the resounding attitude was just, oh, hell no.
Yeah, they made it so that the timeline had been manipulated in a wonky way, and that's why he wound up there.
They ended up retconning it to say, oh no, it was a ploy the whole time.
And then he becomes good again at the end of it?
But that's the thing, though. What gave those characters their value was their values.
Yes.
It was the intangible things that are precious and important. That's why those characters had resonance, because they meant something that was good. And if you take that away, there's nothing left but power, which turns you into a villain. Which is why Superman spends so much time as a villain, because if you lose your connection to your values, there's nothing left but power. And if all that matters is power, then whoever is powerful gets to rule. And that's the only metric that you can then measure. No, that stuff hasn't disappeared from the equivalent media in Japan. If you look at like the core themes that go throughout the Mugen Train movie, particularly as concern sort of the central character Rengoku, it's all about, what is your duty? What is your duty as a person? Given the gifts that you have, what is your duty to the rest of humanity because of who you are? What do you owe to people and to civilization because of the gifts you have? And what is the way to use those gifts to live a virtuous life? Western media doesn't talk about that kind of thing anymore at all.
Yeah, even in the early 2000s, late 90s, one of the more popular interpretations of Superman from the Justice League comic has a very famous speech where he goes off on Darkseid about how he always has to hold back and be careful because he might actually hurt somebody that he doesn't want to, or hurt the person he's trying to apprehend too badly.
The World of Cardboard speech.
Yeah, and how he's so grateful that for once he can work his anger and frustration with that out on this one dude. But they don't care about that kind of stuff in modern comics. All they see is a big, strong, powerful dude they can use to tell everybody how terrible the world is.
Yeah, this is about I think that this is an even deeper thing that about the reasons why you do things, though. Like, I think a more virtuous response would not be to not take out his frustrations because of some material damage that it might do, but to not take out his frustrations recklessly because that would make him a bad person. That would be the way to tell it in terms of virtue, and that is the way that it is done in most Japanese media in the shonen genre, is that it's not about what you can and can't do, it's about your reasons for doing it.
Yeah, there's none of that anymore.
I haven't seen a single... That was the overwhelming impression that I got from this movie, was that how much better executed it is as a tale of telling things that are of value. Like, if you have to pick modern Western media or modern Eastern media to let your children watch in the after school cartoon slot, like, are you going to pick, the latest iteration of Teen Titans or whatever it is that is currently on television, or are you going to let them watch, say, Hero Aka, which has the better values? Which will they come away with a better sense of what's right and what's wrong?
Yeah, you're going to let them watch Hero Aka, but yeah, I'm trying to think if they've done any kind of reasoning for heroes doing what they do in even the Marvel movies.
Usually nihilism in a lot of cases these days.
Oh, I can't think of any real good.
Well, there are a few like slow reasons. Burn. There are a few like slow burn bright spots, though, right? Like, if you look at the MCU and where Tony Stark is at the start of it compared to at the end, but he's definitely had some progression and virtue there, from being, a wealthy playboy who does what he wants because he can, to somebody who's actually willing to sacrifice himself for a greater cause. There is some progression there, but it is not really the central point of the story.
Yeah, and there's
those are common themes for Iron Man usually. He gets that thrown in his face.
And also, that story started a very long time ago chronologically. Like, how long ago did Iron Man 1 come out?
I don't want to think about that.
Mid-2000s, maybe early 2010s at latest.
Yeah, the nihilism in media was definitely taking hold around then, but it hadn't already dominated the entire media space.
Yeah, and I've noticed something with Marvel as well. 2008. Good lord, we're old. But with Iron Man specifically, they have him lately in the comics falling back onto all the vices and demons he conquered. Like, they made a big storyline in the 90s about him getting over alcoholism.
Yeah.
And not drinking anymore. And they have a big dramatic moment later where he just falls back into it, and he falls back into being a playboy, and they never rectify it.
Well, they have a vested interest in him being bad now, so that they can replace him with somebody else who's more diverse.
Yeah, the other thing is the new characters they try to replace him with are buckets of issues as well. Like, they think just tacking on issues to a character will work, but they never have those characters work towards getting better or fixing those issues.
Well, that's because you've got to think about the values of the people writing them, right? Like, they think that the way you write a character is the way you write a Twitter bio, and you look at the sort of crap they put in their Twitter bio.
Ugh.
It's always pronouns and a list of mental illnesses.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, so at any rate, it's a great movie for people who like it. If you do not like or follow the series, it's probably watchable, but you won't get much out of it. It's definitely designed to be watched as a complement to the series. Like, this is going to be something that occupies a space between season 1 and season 2 type of thing.
It is essentially season 2.
I don't know. I haven't read the manga at all, but that was the impression I got. This is definitely for the fans. It's definitely for people who like the first one. If you hated Demon Slayer, and there are a lot of people who do, I'm not quite sure why, but it does have some ardent haters. You're not going to like the movie. It's not going to save it for you because it's more of the same. But in terms of what I feel like the value that it adds to pop culture as a franchise is definitely better than most of the stuff coming from the West. And as far as I'm concerned, the Western comic industry couldn't die fast enough so that something a bit more wholesome can rise from the ashes, hopefully.
Well, it needs to just die and be replaced by somebody that actually cares about writing a good story.
Yeah, unfortunately, the likes of the Comicsgate people can't stop squabbling amongst themselves for 5 minutes.
Yeah, if I see what's his name, Ethan something, Van Sciver and Doug TenNapel at each other's throats again, I'm gonna tear my hair out.
Like they're on the same side too. they're artists basically.
Yeah.
Which means they're total basket cases.
They don't seem to just, I don't know. It's always like message before story. When you go back to the old school comics, and it was always a bit of both.
Well, message before story is something that happens when you think that those two things are separate.
Yeah.
But they aren't separate.
They are not separate.
They're not separate things. Like if your values are good and you can tell a good story, the message will be there.
Yeah. Like old school X-Men was very good for that.
You don't need to bolt the two together because they're not separate things to begin with. If you have them as separate components in your toolbox, you're already a bad writer before you started, and you need to go back to the drawing board. But likewise, when people who have bad values and or are bad writers try and write a story, you get both things. Both their story will naturally tell bad things, but they will also try and bolt on additional values, which will come out looking bad as well.
Yeah, sadly.
Like it's this mentality that you can use something as a medium, like a vector, to deliver a message on purpose and be successful. Most of the time, that's called propaganda. It's not telling a story. That's propaganda. This story in quotes is just a vector to deliver some other product that you're trying to put across. But if you look at something like Lord of the Rings was written to be message fiction.
Yes.
But it was written to be the message that heroic virtue is good. Because Tolkien believed heroic virtue was good. And so he wrote a story about how heroic virtue was good by having heroes who are virtuous. And people, that resonates with people, and they see those characters as archetypes to aspire to, which is more than I can say for the characters in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, Game of Thrones sets, if you go into it looking like and thinking, okay, yeah, but I want to see how everything comes together in the end and how they pull this world out of this terrible position they put it in, you're going to be disappointed. Number one, because the story's not going to get finished to begin with. Number two, because they don't do that.
No, that story is that world is just screwed completely. There is no light at the end of that tunnel.
And I think that's why it's taken him so long to finish it, because he has no conclusion.
Well,
the story ends when the problem is fixed.
There is no conclusion. He set up a world where the war ends when everybody is dead.
Yeah.
He would have to write an entire book of, for lack of a better term, a bunch of characters having a come to Jesus moment and getting their head screwed on straight.
Well, nihilists don't believe in happy endings, so how can you write one?
I don't know what he is. I wouldn't be surprised if he was.
Well, the thing is that ultimately nihilism is your position if you don't believe that virtue is good. Because, like I said, if virtue is not good, if virtue is not worthy of aspiring to, the only thing that's left is power. And that will turn you into a nihilist. But yeah.
We're on break time, by the way.
We are way over time, actually. So,
all right.
We should take a break.
All right, we're going to put on some music. I'm going to get some stuff together to talk about my week, and we'll do Start This' email when we get back. And we're back.
Yes, indeed. And you're not looking at what I'm doing anymore. You're looking at what Ari's doing.
Yep. So when Vol's done with his week, we'll be going over Shadowcry for my week mostly. And
I wasn't planning to carry on any further. I feel like I've talked enough. I've pontificated enough about my views on the media.
Yeah, it was a rant that was been a long time coming.
We'll get another one, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But that's okay. So we have my week, I guess, next. And my week has been spent mostly in the office, even when there's no work going on, because the Opossum had family stuff to do with his wife's parents, about to shuffle off and pass on. They're not doing very good. They're very old. They're very not mentally there. So her entire family decided to come into town from all across the country to have a get together this weekend before they get really any worse.
Yeah.
So this meant that I was alone in the office, even if that was just plain phone duty, even after work time was over, because sometimes I had to stay late waiting on a customer to call me that I knew was going to call me, but they said they would get back to me around 7, and I need all the resources that are in the office. And I couldn't just push it on the Opossum. So I was by myself. So this meant I played a lot of Shadowverse. And I've been playing this game for 4 weeks now?
Round about.
3 weeks. 3.5 weeks-ish. So I've been having a lot of fun with it. It has been taking up most of my time. And most of what I did was the story mode. So we'll start here. The story mode starts off as just a bolt-on story to the game to introduce you to the heroes they have, the leaders they have for each of the classes in the game. So you got Orisa, Erica, Isabel, Rowan, Luna, Urias, Eris, and Ewan. And they're Elf Girl, Sword Girl, Booby Lady that casts magic, Dragon Military Man, Mommy and Daddy are dead and I carry them around with me.
What?
I'm a vampire, I want to fight strong dudes. Crazy Priestess Lady, and Mysterious Dude who got added in later, so he walks through portals and different worlds, and that's his shtick. And he sets up the story for everything else. So the story was very throwaway in the first chapter. You only really have to play through one character's story to understand what's going on, and it doesn't matter whose. Eris's will probably give you the best. There we go. Eris's will probably give you the best for the first one, because she intersects with all the other characters and has the most exposition on what the main antagonist is. The other one's Orisa. So if you do these two stories, you'll get your foundation for the general story. But I've done them all because there's in-game gold rewards you can get to buy packs or the Chinese leaders or something if you really want to. I didn't get the Chinese leaders just because they're Chinese, by the way. But yeah, then the way the stories work, they're all structured like this. The first few chapters have a lot of fights in the story, but eventually they start turning it more into a VN. So you'll see here, you just scroll through the missions and you pick them and you do the mission, and when you beat it, you're done. And after you beat them all, it'll boot you back to the character select screen and it'll say cleared. I don't think you have to unlock the following chapters anymore. I didn't test it because I was just going in order anyway. But after you do that, you'll get the final chapter for that whatever you call it, that arc, and then you'll play through the finale. So for the first one, you only need the way it was when you had to unlock them, if I don't know if you still have to or not, was you only had to clear it with one character, because the other characters' stories are all just filler and more stuff about their personal character if you're interested in them. They can help give you some grounding, but they're really boring and they repeat a lot. You'll find yourself spam clicking through a lot of their stuff because you've seen it all before, and there's not a whole lot of meat to what's going on in the first story. And then we get to Guild Wars, which is a little better. It starts to improve on things and gets stuff in order and starts to tell an actual story with the world that has a beginning, middle, and end, and focuses on the clash between the characters. Where I'll spoil the Morning Star because it's the one you're probably going to blow through first if you do decide to do it. The Morning Star, Arisa's friend Lysaria, gets possessed by a big monster who's an eldritch god from outer space who comes to destroy and rewrite worlds. And she was brought here by Eris because Eris was a mentally broken little girl who watched her entire village die and prayed for salvation and tried to put everybody into a dream world that was their own dream, and it broke. And it turned out that while everybody's asleep, that Eldritch Abomination is getting ready to destroy the world. So they have to go. So they go and they punch the Eldritch Abomination in the face, but it runs away. And so Ewan, the portal guy, shows up, and he gives them teleportation devices so that as a group they can all teleport to different worlds and go looking for her, because they need to find her and either kill her or bring her back. It's not made clear exactly which, to unfreeze their world that they've got stuck in Dreamworld, because their world is just effectively put into stasis right now. Everybody else is still in their dreams. So the first world they go to is a big city that doesn't have a king or a body of government. It has 3 guilds that work together to rule the city. And one of them, or more than 3, they have 5, but one of them is just one dude who's just too stupidly OP for his own good.
So
and he tries...
Mini Ravnica.
Yeah. And they all kind of work together. It's all... that's what I was thinking too. I couldn't remember the name of it. But yeah, Ravnica Light. And they go through and they each join different guilds. So Arisa joins the Knights, Erica joins the Assassins, which I thought was weird. She's Swordcraft. So normally the knightly characters. She joins the Assassins Guild. It becomes clear why later in the story, but at first it's like, why does she join them? And Isabel joins the Mages Guild. And Eris doesn't join the church or the Priest Guild, but she hangs out around them a lot. Urias is a steamroller that just kind of does what he wants and is hilarious the whole time. And Luna befriends the OP guy with alongside Rowan. And it's really funny. They start to really figure out how to write these characters. Like, Luna's a kid who accidentally killed her parents. Or she didn't kill her parents, but her parents were killed during a robbery, and she awakened her necromantic powers later and accidentally bound their souls to her and uses them as a weapon. But she's still a kid, and they write her like a kid, which is something you don't see in media with kids who are main playable characters. But she just wants to be distracted, play with people, have people be nice to her, and figure out a way to let her mommy and daddy go and move on now that she's accidentally bound them to herself. That's her only big plot point. The rest is just, I want to make friends. I want to go play. I want to eat good food.
It's kind of depressing.
Yeah. There are hints that her parents, while not happy with the situation they're in, are still willing to protect their daughter because they don't blame her for it. So, but she winds up friends with the OP guy who tries to be the most chillax and cool person ever and does not know how to interact with kids because he, in general, doesn't want to get near anything fragile because he breaks it. He's so strong. So you have a lot of cute interactions there, and they go through and the guilds go to war because of reasons and stuff happens. And at the end of that, they move on to another world, and they get split up into one half of the people go to a Robot world, and one half of the people go to a forested nature world.
So is this essentially like a Planeswalker story?
Yeah, kind of. It feels like it's taken a lot of cues from what is written into Magic's background for each set, from Ravnica onwards. And eventually those two stories mash together into a super big finale after the forest story and the machine story. And that's where they really get their character writing going. And because they're much shorter, and they figured out maybe we don't need to retell the same cutscene in 2 different people's stories because we have a smaller cast of playable characters now. You don't have to skip whole chapters anymore that are just going to be repeats. So they start to get their game together there, and that ends at Invasion of the World Reaver. And then they really get their act together in Fate's Trigger, which, if you play the English dub, I hope you're not from the South. None of the voice acting's bad, but all of the accents are. Because this is a I'll pull it up on the thing so you can see the heroes. This is our first change of playable characters. The other characters are still in the game, but we go from the POV of these guys. So we have Bunny and Baron, the outlaws, who are train robbers, etc., stuff like that. You have Miser, the deputy, Selena, the church girl, who also has a revolver because who doesn't in the Wild West world, And then you have Mystery Girl, who doesn't look like she fits in the setting, and there's a good reason for that. The storytelling in this one is some of the better storytelling I've seen in VN's period, but you can tell that the tail end of this story happened right when COVID hit. Because they stop it, and they put it completely on hold, and they go off to Velsar. Everything ends terribly for everybody, and then we move into Velsar, and we don't get to see any kind of resolution to Reveal, which is the Wild West world. And we move on to Velsar, which just has 4 loosely connected stories about people in this gothic type world that where everybody's stuck. Yeah, and where everybody's stuck in a time loop. So there have been no returning characters in Entropy's Abyss, which is the Velsar story.
Wait, and was that guy named Alucard?
Yeah, I've told you about this guy before. It is totally not Alucard.
Absolutely not.
So they just made Alucard from Castlevania a character and called him Alucard.
Because they're totally 2 different people. Honest.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he's going to be exclusive to that arc. So he's a one and done. But yeah, that's the thing. So it's got a good story going on, but you can definitely tell that the conclusion of Fate's Trigger and Entropy's Abyss were both during COVID year. Because they just are truncated. And I think they knew that it would be better to just put the story for Fate's Trigger on hold and continue it into a proper conclusion later. Because the story just stops. And if they leave it there, the hero's lost, everything you did was for naught, it's bad times all the time, and that isn't how they've been writing everything else.
Everything else is a bit more optimistic usually.
Yeah, the characters may go through some pretty dark stuff sometimes, but they'll eventually win in the end. Or at least be able to progress on and make progress towards their goal. They never get shut out completely, and so things have ended forever. But the way Reveal ends, it's just everything's terrible forever. Also, the card pack release is slowed down. So Fortune's Hand, or maybe it was World Uprooted. No, it was Fortune's Hand that was the pack that came out at the start of 2020. And you will notice there are only 4 card packs between now and then. Normally there's 3 per year. There were only 2. And everybody that plays this game is positive it was because it was COVID year. Because at the start of this year, from Velsar to the pack coming out next, which is a big throwback pack to the first, to all the arcs before Reveal, and has a bunch of featured characters from that and stuff, which is another reason I wanted to go through the story, is 3 months after Velsar came out, so we're on a track for a 3 to 4 month release for a new set. So we're pretty sure the reason the conclusion of Reveal and Velsar are the way they are is because of Makoof. Now that doesn't excuse the fact that it's not a very good ending or a very good follow-up story, but it's at least gives us hope that they will not be repeating that in the future because it's no longer COVID year. So that's that. And now I want to talk about my experience playing the game. So this week has been the anniversary week. It's the 5-year anniversary of this game. It's been out for 5 years. So, apparently they do this every anniversary, and it's Cygames. Cygames can be hit or miss sometimes, but one thing they are consistent on is during their anniversaries and during specific events, they are incredibly generous. In fact, their free currency is usually incredibly generous. And as you can see up here, I have card pack points. You get 1 of these per pack you open for each set. I have 148 Darkness Over Velsar packs, 98 Eternal Awakening packs, 182 Storm Over Reveal packs, and 52 Fortune's Hand packs, and 11 World Uprooted packs, because that set's about to go out of rotation, so I just haven't bothered getting any packs from it. But that's over like 450 packs I've opened, and I have spent not even $10 on cards. And that was just
up to, say, Hearthstone in terms of the amount of packs you're able to get over the same sort of time period.
I probably got that many packs in Hearthstone grand total the entire time I played that game for like the year and a half I was playing. to compensate, the drop rates are quite a bit lower for legendary cards in general, but because you can pull so many dang packs, it generally doesn't matter. And what's cool is after 400 packs, they have the patented side game Spark system they started. So after you pull X number of gacha pulls, you can go into these tradables list and you can see all the legendaries from that pack, and you can pick one and just get one copy for free. And this is still not as generous as Side Games usually is, and I'll get to why, because there's another system that makes it more generous. For just doing the daily quest, which is really easy, you can get win 3 matches, and they can be in anything. You can go to where are they? I gotta go back. You get temporary gems, temporary cards. So you see I have 6,660 up here. I have not played and done the daily every single day. In fact, I've been quite lax on it. I've done maybe 2 or 3 dailies a week, grand total. And I still have enough to almost get 2 legendary cards as temporary cards. And the way these work is they go into your collection and can be used like normal, but they are not animated and they cannot be disenchanted for dust that you use to craft the card proper. And they have a chance to go away when the card, if the card gets modified. They won't reimburse you for jewels. So that's a system they have. So you can accrue over a month of play. If I was diligent, I would have enough to get 6 legendaries of any card I wanted. And this is for the entire history of the game. You can just get whatever you want. So that's one way to fill your deck. And they have the dust system from Hearthstone. And I'm glad I waited to talk about their rates on this, because I was going to be very negative on it at first before I took everything else into consideration. With the raw amount of free packs you get, if I got to liquefy my extra cards, I have 70,480 dust right now. If I go to create cards, let's find something to look at here. If I go create cards, I think you're you're a common. Dang it. Let's filter by golden legendary. And why do I not have cards in? Let's go to fortune. So this is a legendary card. It takes 3,500 per legendary, and I have 70,000. And then where's a rare card? Okay, here's a gold card. And the gold cards take 800. So that's your super rare, rare, and your ultra rare. So not a whole lot per card point given the amount I have. And I've got this from just opening the card packs I have. And that $10 I paid was not in value for card packs. It was for 10 packs plus a guaranteed leader with this little promotion up here you can see I've already bought. Because the way you get alternate leaders is you either pay for them or you pull an alternate art version of them out of a card pack where they have been reprinted in it. So when they reprint a legendary card that's a waifu or something that'll sell, they will make alternate art for it and stick it in a future pack. And you will, if you pull it, you get the leader. I've got 2 of those. If we go to my decks, go to rotation. You can see I have Ramalia. She's the one you can pull from the packs. And then over here we got Kirari, who I bought with gems from my gem pack. But what's cool? What?
The idle one?
Yeah, Kirari.
I can't see the screen, so.
Yeah, that's Kirari. She has Kirari Robo. So what's double awesome about this though? When I pulled Ramalia, I'm like, oh dang it, I already have Kirari though. Well, their random feature lets you pick between the leaders you want to randomize between. You can exclude the default hero and the one you get from the story, like I have. So you can set it up that way, which is a nice feature that I don't normally see. So I was happy that the random feature lets you exclude dudes. And then we have how you actually make the decks themselves. The decks, you're going to run into a lot of net decks in an online TCG. It's just the way it works. But because the sets are so small, usually the only block you have is the legendary cards. So I don't want to look at Forest. Forest is my worst deck. Let's look at this one. So we have my Runecraft deck. So you'll notice I have one-off copies of a bunch of the legendaries, and some of them are legendaries that don't really even fit in this deck and are just good. But everything else I was able to get fairly easily, and didn't have to craft anything. Because in each set, at the release of the set, there are 2 legendaries, 2 gold cards, 2 silver cards, which are your rares, and 2 commons for every single class and neutral. And when the expansion comes out, because if I go back to the story, you'll see in Velsar over here, we have Darkness over Velsar, and then Darkness over Velsar add-on. Those are 1 more card of each rarity added to every single class. Plus, sometimes they put neutrals, not always though. And you can pull just from the add-on when it gets released, and their drop rates are tripled relative to the stuff in the normal pack if you pull from the add-on, or you can just keep pulling from the regular pack. So because the packs aren't that big in terms of the raw number of cards each class has, because in Hearthstone it was just a mishmash. Different classes would have different numbers of cards released each set. Some classes would just get totally shafted.
No wonder they couldn't bounce their way out of a wet paper bag.
Yeah,
but in this one it's consistent. So I've been quite happy with a lot of that stuff. And there's another system. I can't view the system right now because I already have one. But if I go to, let me do this. Let me pull up my Havencraft deck, and I think I can just sort by temporary. Yeah. So when you start the game, every season you're allowed to pick 1 temporary deck, and for the duration of that season, you get a temporary copy of every single card in that deck. And this is a pre-built deck that you can use just to kind of get started with the game. And this is the one I picked down here on the bottom that has some stuff grayed out because it's still in the main deck. I've got some copies of it. Like I have, if it doesn't have a yellow number next to it when it's in the deck, I have real copies of it as well. But you just get all these cards for the entirety of that current rotation. And when the new set comes out and the previous rotation goes away, those decks become purchasable as permanent cards for real money, and a new set of 4 temporary decks will roll in that'll let you keep up with the current rotation. So if the new set comes out and you see a deck that you really want, or one of the temporary decks has a lot of good cards you really don't think you'll be able to pull, you can scoop the temporary deck instead. So yeah, and this has contributed to a lot of people running things like Artifact Portal deck, which has been my bane. Yeah, because it's a pseudo combo deck that just has this girl who has the effect. Don't worry about evolution if you weren't here for last week or the week before when I showed you. But when this really easy to meet condition happens, so basically when you play her, if you have 6 play points, gain +X equal to the number of cards that were artifacts destroyed this match that had different names, and she can go face that turn. She can attack your opponent directly. Storm means it can hit face. Rush means it can hit anything on the board on the turn it's played. Otherwise, it has Summoning Sickness and has to wait a turn before it can attack. And she gets Storm, so she can go face. And she gets +X, and she starts as a 4/3. So you only have 20 health in this game. And if turn 6 rolls around, if they poked you at all and have been playing the deck right, they will have vomited out like 8 or 9 different named artifacts and intentionally killed them to keep tempo going, and then they just drop her and win the game. But what's more frustrating is the rest of the cards in the deck are incredibly cheap, or they're in the current Portalcraft temporary deck. So everybody has them. Or has access to them. I picked the Havencraft one, which was not bad. That's the control deck, and also a different form of cancer. That just every time you get healed while it's key artifact that you have a billion ways to search out is on the field, it'll auto trigger and do the first time you're healed, do 3 damage to a random enemy follower for each one you have on the field. The second time, summon a 4/4, and the third time, give something +2/+2 and ward, which means if something could attack your face, it has to hit the thing with ward first. Or it has to think ward first if they attack with anything. So I picked the control deck and I've been having a lot of fun with that. My Havencraft level is like 60 and everything else is at level 30 or 25. The only deck I don't recommend starting with is Forest. Forest, despite being the quote-unquote main character with Orisa, is incredibly difficult to play is not intuitive in how you're supposed to play it, and is really, really hard if you don't know your deck really, really good. Because all of the cards have, you'll see here, if at least X other cards were played this turn. So you have to card count. Now there's an indicator for it, but there are some cards that count as multiple cards being played. So that'll add to the card count by 3. Like there's one legendary that when you summon her, you get a spell in your hand, and when you play that spell, it gives you 2 extra cards on your play point counter. So when you play it, you get 3 cards played if you wait till next turn. So you can jump your card count up. And a lot of these cards involve bouncing stuff. Like you have Xeno Sagittarius here, who instead of playing him for 6, you can play him for 1, and at the start of your next turn he'll die, and you can draw a card. Or you can run cards like Deepwood Wolf and Wind Fairy that just for 1 cost return allied follower or amulet to your hand, and you just pick him back up, and his effect when he's picked back up, when he leaves the field, draw a card as well. So you can just keep picking him up, or you can just drop him for 1 if you don't have a bounce card and let him sit there and let you draw a card. Actually, he'll draw 2 because he'll leave the field, trigger his own effect, and he'll have the last words draw a card. So you gotta pay attention to that stuff, and it's also hard because it relies on this effect called Accelerate. So this is Deepwood Wolf, a 7 drop for 3/3, not so good, but it has Storm. Okay, still not that good, but its main purpose is Accelerate 1. That means instead of playing it for 7, you can play it for 1 and get a different effect that's usually not as good. Same thing with Wind Fairy. She's a 9 drop 3/3 with Storm. They can attack twice, but Accelerate 1 do the same thing the Wolf does. And then you have to do stuff like count amulets on your board. So that's why I have a bunch of cowboy stuff in here, because it summons like a dutiful steed or a bullet bike. These are all amulets, and then you have something like Varmint Hunter that every time one of those leaves the board, it'll do random damage. And then you have Giant Pastures that need you to count how many you have to do X damage. It's just not an easy type of deck to play in general for new players. So, but everything else you can probably figure out. Artifact Portal specifically takes some getting work. Not so much Puppet Portal, but Artifact Portal takes some work because you got to learn what all the artifacts are. Because there's cards like Paradigm Shift that says play one of these 3 cards. But if you don't know what those 3 cards are, you're not gonna know how to deal with it. And then Shadowcraft's the other newbie unfriendly one, because every time you play a spell or one of your monsters dies, you gain a shadow, and that empowers your things depending on what your current shadow count is at, and you expend that many for necromancy effects. So this card says necromancy 10, give +1/+0 to all allied followers. So you'll spend 10 shadows to get that additional effect, and you do not have a choice. You have to pay the necromancy effect. So because it's not optional and it is mandatory, this can be a little wonky to get right. And in general, the cards for it are very expensive. It's the current meta deck right now as well, is Shadow, Last Word Shadow, because it has, where's Chris? Chris Beyond the Patch, who's just a pumpkin-headed scarecrow in a tuxedo. He does a whole bunch of cool stuff depending on the number of allies with Last Word that died this match. So it's all about pulling out dudes that have effects when they die, killing those dudes intentionally, and summoning extra copies of them as fast as you can to pump up your number of cards with that died this match, so that Chris Beyond the Patch can come out and do OP stuff. But this deck is really, really, really expensive. And I do not have even half of the cards I need for it. So those 3 I would recommend staying away from. Bloodcraft is probably the easiest to find there. I like Blood a lot. Havencraft's control is fairly straightforward control as well. You'll be fine with that. Dragon is ramp, but in addition to having the usual ramp of accelerate your turn count with like Dragon Oracle for two points, you gain an empty play point for next turn. So you push yourself a turn ahead. It ramps your deck as well with cards like Beating of Dragon Wings that give +1 or +0/+1 to all cards inside of your deck and add 1 to your hand. Or Mermaid Oracle that when she's summoned, do it as well. And then you have cards like that have effects. Where's the stupid Coral Shark? Like Coral Shark, that if he has at least 3 defense, the best way for him to get that is when he's in the deck, he does an extra thing. Just stuff I wish Hearthstone would have done. Like that would have been a cool thing to do with Druids, to play off their already ramp style, but they just stuck to what Dragon Oracle does. And in addition to that, they have the Overflow mechanic permanently active for Dragoncraft as a class feature, where if you are over 7 mana, period, total mana available, you will get this permanent status called Overflow that gives you bonus effects on all your cards. So it's worth it to try to ramp. So just stuff that I wish Hearthstone had done. And then it doesn't really focus on archetypes very much for any of the cards. The closest we get is Swordcraft, but it's not hard set. The 11 cards, the officer and commander cards are a thing to keep note for, but you can figure it out pretty easy. It just do what the card says and look for the tags on it. And Runecraft can be a bit of a rocky start, but just should be fine. It's the current Runecraft deck revolves around getting the number of cards in your deck below 20. No matter what you do, your objective is to mill yourself and do your best to keep tempo for the first 2 or 3 turns of the game, because you want to get under 20 cards. But everything else is straightforward with Runecraft. It's a very aggro-heavy deck with multiple toolbox options and combo options from that toolbox. So you're okay with beginners on that one. So plenty of relatively easy deck types to play. That's just straightforward. And a story that gets fairly decent as it goes on. So I've been enjoying this game a lot. I have not done much rank play yet, although the bit I have done has driven me up the wall because it's all Artifact Portal or Last Word Shadow right now. And they're really generous with absolutely everything they give you. There's more I could talk about, like the Grand Prix happened this week, which is occasionally they'll just put Grand Prix up. This one's the 5th anniversary one, and was a Arena Take-Two All-Stars. So it was you're given 2 sets of 2 cards that are legendaries or rares from the entire history of the game, pre-nerf, because they've nerfed cards. They're light touch with their nerfs, I've noticed. They don't nerf cards lightly, or very heavily at all. They take a soft hand to it and may nerf a card multiple times in one rotation, but they take advantage of it being a digital format without going crazy with it. But this is
failed doing to do.
Yeah, but this Grand Prix is the pre-nerf versions of all those cards, and was just supposed to be a fun Grand Prix. And because it was a fun Grand Prix, I actually managed to win my my semifinal Grand Prix round. I'll copy this and paste it in live show chat. I won all 5 matches, and all of these work the same. You go into it and you play 5 games, and your rewards increase for each of those 5 games you win. But you have to play all 5 of them before you get the rewards. So if I go to live show chat, I can show you the interface for it. And I did manage to win all of them in this one because it didn't rely on the cards I already have. So I've had a lot of fun with those, and you got 1 free entry per day. Otherwise, you had to pay. You could pay with any currency to keep playing them and try again. And I qualified for the finals today, but I won 1 and lost 2. And it's play either till you win 3 or until you lose 2. And I only won 1, but I still got decent rewards from it. So there's a lot of stuff to do. You have missions every time there's a in this quest area. These will rotate as events go through. It's the Automaster one still, but and that'll have stuff to do. Just a lot of stuff to do. Ways to earn money in card packs. The decks themselves are generally very fun to play, and they can get very technical if you want them to, or they can be relatively simple. You have a whole lot of freedom despite the low card count, and because the low card count is relatively low, with only 3 cards per class with each set, it's not that hard to learn the game because you'll know what all the cards do pretty quickly. Unless somebody's playing a legendary that just you never ever see, you'll know what all the other cards do. So I've been having a lot of fun with this game, and we'll probably keep playing it.
Nice.
So I figured I would have Fern show it because it'd be easier to demonstrate while it's on my screen.
I have to switch that back because the quality's starting to degrade. So I think my crappy internet has sat up and taken notice of.
Yep.
Right.
So I will stop the stream so it's not draining my internet, and we will switch back to that thing. And Serathis has a really long email. I've been yammering a bit, and honestly, I've been banned from reading the emails.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of news this week. There's a lot of little bits and pieces because the games industry kind of having an E3 hangover.
Yeah.
I don't even think there are a lot of little things. Like, it's not. Everybody's.
I had to dig for some little things.
Yeah, I don't think that it's much of a newsy point of view right now. It would be silly to announce anything now anyway for most companies because they will have taken the E3 season as their opportunity to get the most coverage. But
yeah.
Oh,
right.
you actually pasted an image of the email so that I don't have to operate the email box?
Yeah. I thought about it. I'm like, why haven't I been doing this every time?
Oh, no.
Because that would require the sort of forward planning that we are simply constitutionally incapable of.
Completely.
At any rate, this is our email from Serathus. Think, no excuses, think. If the show is just a lame copy of Justice League with brightly coloured costumes and square-jawed superheroes, then why is it written by the guy who made The Walking Dead? So yeah, I ended up binging Invincible. This is what we have to make do with on the Western animation front. Either this or CalArts Cancer. It was pretty good actually, apart from the bit of wokeism with the gay best friend and the mad scientist who doctored in seismology but has an undergrad in political science and African culture. He proceeds to lecture a superheroine for wearing all pink when she set out to smash the gender roles. Also tears down Mount Rushmore because they were slavers and colonizers and shit. And the romantic plot tumour because the main characters are high school superheroes, and just like a fishing minigame in Vidya, high school superheroes must have a romantic plotline about juggling civilian identities and always late from dates because yet another kaiju attacked. 8 out of 10 season 2 and 3 has been ordered.
It's more that some of those things just have to be in stuff now. It's sad.
And the Venture Brothers Season 8 has been uncancelled, so we got covered on the Western animation front. Except that Netflix is making a live-action Last Airbender, seemingly in the after-school special format, taking place on Earth. Please stop desecrating the best 20s? 2000s?
Yeah, 2000s. The noughties.
2000, the best 2000s Western animation already. Korra and Shamalama was not enough. But on a more positive note, are you going to let me read this, or are you going to interrupt every time there's something you want to comment on? You have to pick one or the other before we start.
Just keep going.
But on a more positive note, Doom Time. Do you like killing literally Nazis for free? Well, Wolfenstein Blade of Agony version 3 just released, a standalone game where you dismantle the Nazi super science projects way behind enemy lines with pretty good gameplay and graphics, toned down the bloom, immensely varied levels, dev commentary, upgrades and everything. The difficulty is a bit high, the arsenal is what you would expect from a World War II game, and sometimes you have Nazi zombies, because that's what Wolfenstein is about, but it's worth the price of $0. As for the electronic entertainment experience, the only thing that caught my attention was Slime Rancher 2, because we need more cute, wholesome games, and because there was nothing about Silksong or Deltarune 2. I also had something about full immersion VR in this draft I saved like 3 weeks ago, but I completely forgot what that was about. Serathus.
Slime Rancher is fun. I like Slime Rancher, even if it is CalArts. It was CalArts before CalArts really took on, though, so I'm not going to hand it too bad.
I should boot it up again to give it a proper try, because while my fan for my GPU was on the stupid auto VR curve, it was having some shoes, and the fan would start spinning like crazy anytime nighttime rolled around.
Yep.
So I've adjusted the fan curve now, but I haven't really even tried Slime Rancher 1.
Give it a go. It's just a chill time of, farming poo.
Yeah, if you're always looking for things to occupy your hands while you do something else, maybe that'll do the trick.
Yeah,
especially since PSO2 has abandoned you, which you didn't talk about during your week.
There's a good reason I haven't talked about it.
You haven't played it.
There's nothing to report. It's the same thing we went over last week, and the wedding dress is just as ugly as it was, is way uglier than the one in PSO2. So that AC scratch ticket was a wash, and I just bought it all with gold without having to spend any money.
The whole reason you said you were continuing to play.
Did they put any cast parts in it? Is the big question.
I don't know.
Probably not.
I think they've forgotten that casts are in the game since they took races out.
Yeah, I think they did that.
I wish they hadn't. They should have just left in male and female and the different races. If they want to remove the statistical differences between them, fine, go ahead, do that if you really must, although I don't really understand why you would. But
they're so minor, it doesn't matter by the end of the game anyway.
Really makes absolutely no difference.
It doesn't matter by the end of the first 10 minutes. But I don't understand why you would take all that stuff out other than to appease the sort of people who get hysterical over things being different from other things. So Yeah, because there's something psychologically different about creating, say, a human character compared to a human character, rather than creating a body type 1 character and gluing horns onto it. Like I know that my character, because I did the recustomization thing, and I know that my character was a human, so I didn't have that effect. But nobody will ever create another human character. That's the thing. Those don't exist anymore. The horns exist, and the ears for humans exist, but nobody will ever create another human character because they've removed that word.
Yeah, we had a guild of one member of every single race. I pointed this out a few weeks ago when I noticed it to Fern when we were playing PSO 2.2. I was like, I think in our guild we have somebody of every single race, or we had until they removed it.
But we have to completely get rid of races in order to improve diversity, so don't worry about it.
Slather my character in as many robot parts and or cardboard boxes as possible, and I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, we had Fern the cast, Vol was the Dooman, I was the Newman, and Ava was the boring human.
Yeah.
What an epithet. But yeah, Invincible. I've seen no end of memes about it. I have no idea if it's any good or not. If nothing else, it seems to be good for memes. But
YouTube
that's all that it seems to do.
However, that there is this new Cal Arts animation that I should be totally watching because YouTube says, just Centaur World or something like that.
If you've seen one, you've seen them all.
I don't even need to click on the video, and I can already tell it is abominable. I just look at the thumbnail.
There is just no talent. There's no talent coming out of that part of the world at all. Like, it's California. What do you expect? Nobody there has any kind of talent anymore, because anybody who shows up to an art school with talent, they will beat it out of them in order to get them to conform.
Misogyny is king. No, wait,
because that's what art has always been about, absolute conformance to the grey paste, right? That's how it works.
That's how it works, absolutely.
Yeah, it's tall poppy syndrome on steroids in California right now. If you have more natural talent or more natural earned ability, not natural in that case, I guess, but more earned ability than somebody else, and you come in and say, hey, look what I can do, they're going to go, yeah, but that's not communist enough.
Yeah, check out this neat picture. Isn't it cool?
No, it doesn't have the exact same shaped face as everything else and a sausage mouth.
Like a bean.
So you will be drugged down to mediocre.
But the thing that Invincible still has, by the looks of it, the same sort of post-ironic bullcrap that everything else does. Like, the reason why it has square-jawed superheroes is not because they are presenting some sort of archetype in a sense of being an unironic archetype. They are presenting a classic hero archetype with the sort of ironic attitude that look at how classically archetypal this is. Like, everything is to be layered on irony, and nothing can be sincere anymore.
Yeah, Seraphis lost me in his email with the Mount Rushmore thing. At that point, I just decided I don't care.
Yeah.
If you're going to go that far, your entire team is infected, and this cannot end well for anybody.
Yeah, well, I don't know anything about it. I'm not going to criticize any of the finer points of the show, but it doesn't. You didn't sell it to us, mate.
Not at all.
The 8 out of 10 at the end doesn't redeem the everything else you said. So, and I've still never watched an episode of Venture Brothers, so I have no idea.
Venture Brothers for me was a very mixed bag. Sometimes I liked it. Oops. Sometimes I didn't. I just crashed the trains.
I see. I caught the occasional episode on the actual television. When there was nothing else on, I would leave it on.
When people actually used those?
Yeah, like a zillion years ago. But I haven't ever sat down and watched the show just to watch the show.
Yeah, it's not. I just don't. It's not just Western animation though. Like I pointed out at ridiculous length earlier in the show, it's Western media in general has basically hit a dead end, because their head is lodged too far into their own rectum to see what constitutes entertainment anymore. And them deciding that they need to lobotomize Avatar: The Last Airbender again is sort of just evidence of that. Because like Avatar: The Last Airbender, like it had some issues, but generally speaking, it was the last really big show that tried to show, you know, positive messages.
Yeah.
Yeah. The original series is perfectly okay watching.
Still good watching.
The existence of the follow-up series is enough to demonstrate to you the direction that it was headed, that whole industry was headed.
And it just didn't have the same heart at all.
It wasn't about the values of the people involved. It wasn't about the why of things. It was just about the things.
Just about the things, exactly.
Just remember at the start of the show that incredibly politically incorrect YouTuber who got booted forever ago, ER. He will repeatedly play the clip in his discussion of the show of "I'm the Avatar, you gotta deal with it" from a like 3-year-old Korra being a Mary Sue.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing, I think, is Aang had issues, mostly because he was just a kid. Korra didn't. He was always
because he was
He was ice. He was put on ice for like 1,000 years or something.
It's to do with the fact that being the Avatar was a duty. It wasn't something that you were. It was a job you had to do, and it was not something you could get away from. Which is why his running away from it is portrayed as futile and a great betrayal of everything that he was supposed to believe in. Like the idea that you have, as a result of your position in the world, duties to your fellow man is something that is not present in modern media. And the idea of Korra saying that I'm the Avatar, you have to deal with it, is sort of encapsulates the change in attitude. Like Aang was not capable of really bragging about being the Avatar because he felt it as a burden. Yes. And I know that they tried to create a contrast with Korra, but what they really did contrast was the different attitudes of the people writing the story.
Yeah, and supposedly it was the same people that wrote it, but you can tell they just went down the woke train too much and prioritized that.
Marches on. They were normal people when they wrote it originally.
Yeah, but they got infected by the woke virus, and all the woke stuff became more important than telling a good story with Korra. And so, in addition to everything Val mentioned, she's also a Mary Sue.
Well, she's got to be strong and empowered. You can't have a female character lose to somebody.
Yeah, and she's and of course she went full lesbians for the other female character by the end of it.
What about
and this became more important than anything else in the story, according to the writers.
Well, it's what the sort of people that the writers were listening to were cheering for.
Yeah.
Is the only thing they were interested in fact, because it supports their ideology. They don't care about the development of the characters themselves, like as people, and the way that is demonstrated through the trials and tribulations they go for. They're just looking for a box to be checked to show we support your ideology. This is now a piece of propaganda for you.
All right. What else was in that email?
I gotta pull it back up.
Shamalama Ding Dong's version of Avatar.
Shamalama Ding Dong's version was an abomination.
I was going to ask, wasn't there an M. Night Shyamalan version while you were reading it? That's what I went, about.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, that was just why. Why would you do that? Like, all of the children that were growing up watching Avatar: The Last Airbender and enjoying it were still children at that time. You weren't treading on somebody's childhood in retrospect. You were treading on it in real time.
Yeah. Why was this a thing? It wasn't even that. It hit the main story beats of the story, at least the first part of the story, but somehow managed to miss everything else.
Yeah.
Everything that made those story beats work.
So yeah, that's Avatar, and then there's of course
Doom, because it wouldn't be a series of email without Doom.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything to say about it.
Because he sends so many emails about Doom, I always have this sort of guilty feeling in the pit of my stomach that I don't investigate the things he recommends, because I'm just not. In fact, most of the people on this planet are not anywhere near the Doom fanatic that Serathis is. But Yeah, I guess I was never really a fan of Wolfenstein either. Like, there was no particular magic in the killing of Nazis for me that made me want to play it because it was killing Nazis.
Yeah,
Although
I played
that
the
seems to have
original.
been the sort of cultural point of access that the developers are trying to shoot for, that and sort of like grotesque parody feminism, which is apparently where the last one went. Not on purpose parody, sort of accidental parody by having female characters that are just basically horrific, and a game that is basically horrific, so nobody played it. But yeah, that I guess that franchise is dead to most people at this point, which is probably why they're trying to remake it in Doom.
Yeah, unless they can come out with something completely new for Wolf, it's pretty much done for most.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do with Nazis, and especially now that the word Nazi has been completely denuded of all definition.
The fact that it now means someone I disagree with.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't even mean disagree with, it just means don't like. I don't like you right now. Therefore, you're now a Nazi. Like, that's what it means. So, to make a game about Nazis sort of doesn't have any real meaning anymore. But and you know, you'll still see all these people who think that they can actually wield that word or the word fascist in tandem with it, as though it means anything anymore. But unfortunately, the modern culture is all about smashing the meaning out of anything that had meaning wherever possible. Just render the entirety of civilization into meaningless grey paste. That's where we're headed. But yeah, as far as E3 was concerned, I mean, we did the show on it. There was nothing exciting.
Yeah,
nothing there was like, oh wow, I can't wait for that. Like, maybe they could have gotten that reaction out of me if they had somehow managed to include a trailer for Fate Extra Record, because it's like the only game I'm looking forward to, the only one.
It's a Fate game, so that's not gonna.
Well, Sony's last presentation that they did last time, it had a clip of FGO in it. A very, very short one. But yeah, there's it was a bad E3, my goodness.
It was
a bad E3. And I'm never sure whether or not it was worse than the last E3, because that was my reaction to pretty much every E3 in succession. But my suspicion is they have just been going gently downhill. So everyone is just slightly worse than the last one.
Yeah.
Well, especially with kookier running this year and last year, it's going to seem like we're on a downhill slope. If it's still bad next year, the industry's dying.
Oh yeah.
There's just nobody is making things that are cool, that really inspire. Like, you get a few of them here and there, although I would say that they occur in. Basically, you'll get the odd one out of the indie space that will really inspire people, although it's usually something trite like Amogus. Or alternatively, out of Japan, you will occasionally get a smash hit. But, you know, Sony's been enthusiastically trying to destroy the Japanese video games industry through every tendril that they can reach. Don't know why, but they are. But yeah, there's not that many games that people are excited about. Like, people seem to be genuinely excited to play Scarlet Nexus. I haven't. Is it out yet? Is it out?
Yeah. I think it's coming up in the next week or so.
Yeah, I don't know whether or not I'll play it, but people are somewhat excited for that at least. But that's about the highest level of excitement that I've actually seen for a video game release in quite some time, and it's not very high.
Yeah,
I think that people just aren't inspired by the things that are being offered. Like, do people even know when a new Call of Duty is coming out these days? Because that's the issue though, right? It seems to be that the excitement generated gets a little bit less every time another sequel is announced. And we're at the point now where nobody even notices, and it's basically milking domesticated cattle at this point. You're not hunting for new consumers, you're just milking the ones that are already in the pen.
Man, remember when you would get 1 or 2 games per franchise, per console's life cycle?
I mean, it's there's just not nobody seems to be willing to take risks anymore. Well, there is one source of money that is willing to take risks in the video game space, and it's the CCP. But their way of taking risks is strictly as a form of entryism into the market. It's not really about the customers at all. It's only sufficient to only hoping that they can turn them into pawns later. But it's just generally the E3 is a reflection of the state of the industry, even if we don't like to think about it as such, because it's sort of giving undue importance to it. But E3 is now sort of at the level of the video games awards in terms of importance.
It's not.
Yeah, it's just not. In fact, the Video Games Award is a bigger spectacle because it has somebody who's actually trying to hype it up.
Yeah. When some of the biggest names in gaming don't even bother to turn up anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it would take to haul the industry out of this slump, because it's not like great games don't get made, because like Monster Hunter World got made, but
yeah, Devil May Cry 5 got made.
You need to have those for everybody. So there needs to be, as the console cycle proceeds forward, every genre needs to have these things, and they need to stick around. They need to become a phenomenon like Skyrim did. You need to have a few of those floating around, and not just, have one of them however many years ago it was now, and then resell it over and over again.
And big deal of that.
I can't think of anything that people are really hyped for and that everybody's playing or talking about anymore.
They are sort of hyped for the new Bethesda thing, but I don't have any faith that it will be good, and I think that there is more caution than there is hype.
There is definitely more caution, because people have been burned a lot by Bethesda in the past.
Yeah, Fallout 76 happened and people won't forget it. It doesn't matter whether it's a good game now, because, I mean, it might be. I don't know. There are people that say it is, that it's really rallied now. We've got NPCs, we've got the structure of an actual Fallout game, plus we've got the big world to explore. The thing that people actually wanted.
Yeah,
however many years after the fact, has become the product that people actually wanted.
Yeah.
But the fact that people were burned at the start doesn't go away. It's still there. It's still there in the cultural memory that surrounds Bethesda. So when their new thing comes out, what was it called again?
Starfield.
Starfield. When Starfield comes out, people are going to, approach it with caution, and the only mechanism available to publishers to defray that sort of paranoia that people have got cooking now is to pay off a whole pile of influencers, streamers, etc., who have a certain amount of counter effect of that phenomenon. But the long-term effect of that is to simply use up their credibility as a venue for information.
Yes.
The same way that happened with video games journalists. I don't see any difference, to be honest. But between the influencer and the games journal. It's just on a different timescale. Because they're just as easily bought, it seems.
In some cases, easier.
Oh yeah, because they're not used to having money and they don't have a corporate structure. They'll just see somebody handing money over to them, and eventually they all go to jail for tax evasion.
Yeah. Problem is we're actually seeing that play out in real time. People will pick their favourite YouTuber or Twitcher or whatever, and they will stick with them until the moment they start to obviously sell out, in which case they will abandon them as quick as they came.
Yeah, well, the question is, will we see an ongoing treadmill of new ones rising up to replace the old ones and then selling out? Or are we going to see that medium descend into irrelevancy as a whole? Is that even a word? Irrelevance. But the video games media, as it currently exists, is sort of a joke. It's a joke to everyone now. People tell that joke in public. Major venues tell the joke about needing games journalist mode in video games. Nobody respects them, and nobody takes their opinions into account. I'm not sure how places like Polygon continue to operate. Like, they're basically just a rumour collection point for the purposes of YouTubers doing research.
I think they're just subsisting off advertiser revenue from developers who haven't cottoned on yet.
Yeah, like there's a shelf life on that. It's going to fade away, but I don't see any reason for streamers not to, because my expectation is that streamers are just going to become a tool in the toolbox of publishers to try and counteract the bad reputation that their poor decisions have made in the past without needing to correct those poor decisions. So when Starfield comes out, there's going to be a huge amount of influences. I hate the term, actually. It makes my mouth
I've always hated that term.
Yeah. I feel like I said I've tasted something bitter.
Yes.
But there's going to be an awful lot of influencers who are going to shill for it relentlessly. And I think people eventually cotton on when this happens before every game, because this happened for the likes of Fallout 76 as well. When this happens for every game and then the game turns out to be a pile of garbage, they'll just stop listening to them. And rather than trying to resolve the core issue, the publishers will just look for the next rising promotional outlet to hijack for the purposes of trying to get away with murder again. So I don't know what it will take to what sort of bomb you need to drop on the industry to actually turn it around and make the developers think that you know what, actually maybe we should think about the gamers first, because they put us where we are, and the fact that we got here because of them shows that doing that is profitable. I mean, that's the tack that Capcom took.
Yeah,
and they've talked about it in no uncertain terms that they decided to reprioritize around the quality of game and make the monetization part an afterthought, and they're doing gangbusters as a result. Because all they are doing is rediscovering the original plan.
Yeah, make good games and they will come.
But their demonstration of this fact has not percolated through the rest of the industry at all. So they are just dropping smash hit after smash hit and doing millions and millions in sales, and everybody else looks on and shrugs.
And it baffles me that the other companies haven't taken notice, because every Capcom game that's dropped since Resident Evil 7 has gotten on the mainstream radar. Like, Resident Evil 7, Devil May Cry 5, Monster Hunter World, and Resident Evil 8 all made it to the mainstream. If you ask any video game player, period, they would tell you they at least had heard of those games at the time of launch and were thinking about them.
And hasn't Rise also done like 5 million or something?
Yeah,
and Rise
sold like absolute hotcakes.
Since when was Portable Monster Hunter even a thing outside of Japan?
I mean, we got our problems with it, but it's still a great Monster Hunter game.
I must have put like approaching 200 hours into this, just mucking about and doing stuff and hunting monsters. And I had an endless list of complaints about it, but they're all the sort of complaints you have about something that you love and want to see get better.
Yes.
Yeah, it's every single company in the Western world especially, and even in Japan to a lesser degree, needs to have a Capcom moment.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
go on.
So unfortunately, I don't think they have a what's his nuts maker of Devil May Cry 5 who is going to walk in your office and say, you're going to let these projects happen and you're going to give me full control over this project right here exactly as I want to do it, or I'm walking. I don't think every company has one of those handy to make that kind of change happen.
You also need to have a succession of just very public, very brutal failures.
But I mean, as far as Devil May Cry went, that had to happen more than once, remember? Because Devil May Cry 2 happened.
It did.
And he had to lay down the law to get Devil May Cry 3 made. And then 4 was successful, and then DMC Devil May Cry was done for almost the same reasons that DMC 2 was done, just in a different time period. And again, someone has to come and lay down the law and say, look, your ideas are terrible, let the people who know how to do this do it. I was browsing Twitter the other day, and I saw Mark Kern was doing a sort of a mini Ask Me Anything. And so people were naturally asking him questions about Blizzard. And he straight up said Blizzard is probably the single worst games development company in the industry today, along every axis for a myriad of reasons. And if I was put in control of it, the first thing I would do would be to scrap everything that they currently have on the go, quit in a huff from Activision Blizzard, and re-establish Blizzard as an independent studio and redevelop things from the ground up with a completely different strategy that is focused on making games for gamers and putting profit as a totally secondary concern.
We need more of him.
Yeah, the problem is the people that get into higher positions or get promoted away from the area where there can be a problem, and the people that get into the marketing teams and the people that get into the CEO positions
are never, ever, ever the people that know how to make the video game.
No, they're money people.
Well, I mean, Mark Kern's original vision for Firefall sounded like it would have been a pretty good game, but I mean, he got jettisoned from that project as a breach of contract because it was his contract said that he was supposed to be in absolute control of it, and they removed him by force anyway, which is why he quit from whoever it was that was developing Firefall. Firefall immediately became a subpar WoW clone, and they tried to get him back to use his name as the WoW guy for marketing purposes, and they offered him a massive bonus and a 7-figure salary just to draw a salary so that he was on their development team, and he just told them to piss off. He turned down a 7-figure salary to do nothing, and told them to piss off.
Shows what the caliber of his character, really.
Which is why he managed to make a smash hit game.
Several smash hit games.
I mean, he said that he said in this Ask Me Anything that if he was put in charge of WoW development going forward, he would basically create a proper forked development for World of Warcraft. One of them based on Classic, and which would then go on to tell its own story in its own way with its own course of development and its own development team, adhering to the classic design philosophies of World of Warcraft. And then he would basically operate a salvage project on the live World of Warcraft that would remake it into something specifically calibrated to keep the live player base happy.
Yeah.
But he would basically dump all of the assets into the same pool. And so basically he would run 2 MMOs in parallel, one which was the casual MMO, aka live World of Warcraft, and one which was the real World of Warcraft, which is classic redeveloped and then continuing from where it left off back in the early Burning Crusade period. But yeah, too bad. It's not going to happen because that's not how Blizzard operates. And his opinion on how Blizzard operates now is that basically they are in China's pocket and they do what China wants. Everything that they do is put up against as a deciding factor, how will this play in China? Because there's just so much money to be made there.
Yeah.
Sad. Very sad.
People haven't forgotten the Blitzchung thing. People might not talk about it anymore, but people haven't forgotten where Blizzard's loyalties actually lie.
Yep. That's why I unsubbed from WoW Classic.
Yep.
I was enjoying WoW Classic at the time too. And I wrapped that in a bow and said I'm done. As soon as the Blitzchung stuff happened.
Right.
A lot of mileage out of that email.
Yeah, we did. Thanks for the email, sir. It went ranty.
Yep. So, next, we have some newslets and a little bit of drama. Do we want to do the newslets first or the drama first?
One of the newslets is drama, so might as well do that.
Okay. So we have a bit of drama that's gone over the past 2 or 3 weeks that we haven't talked about because E3's been happening, but it's worth mentioning. That's Factorio. Where's the other one? There we go. Okay, so we have recent cancellations by the cancel culture mob that have hit 2 developers. Both indie developers. Yeah. Both indie developers. And I haven't looked much into the Factorio one, Fern. I figured you would since this is your thing. Mm-hmm. But I did read the Five Nights at Freddy's one, which was the first one. And so what happened with him was they found out that Scott Cawthon, the guy who made the games, donated to Trump. And so they sent the mob after him. And while the mob was, relatively speaking, not a huge number of people for these types of mobs, they still made threats on his family, and the dude has kids now.
They never are a huge number of people, ever. It's never a huge number of people. It's just a small number of incredibly dedicated, incredibly hateful people.
Yeah. Yes. So what I meant was it seemed even small for that. But they still went after him, and they made threats against his family. And so he just said, you know what? I've made FU money. Screw you guys. And he just quit.
Yeah, he just said, if I don't feel like doing it anymore, I'm just going to retire. So he did.
I like part of his statement. Some of it was trying to play, the typical middle of the road conservative. But one part of it I did really like where he goes, y'all had something good going on here. You had a direct line of communication with your developer who has talked with you more directly, more than any other indie developer out there. But because you guys are doing this, you're going to lose that now. I'll give the project off to somebody else, and I'm quitting. I've got all the money I need. And I'm going to focus on raising my kids.
So he went and did exactly that.
And
more power to him. Like, I mean, he made the right choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how his story there. And what's funny about Scott is this surprised anybody, because before he made Five Nights at Freddy's, the animatronics came to be animatronics because he did some indie Christian games that are awful, because all Christian games have to be awful.
He had a hand in an indie Christian movie. The models. As well.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, he had his hand in a indie Christian movie as well, which was also awful.
Well, yeah, because if you start out with the premise of religion, you're probably going to make a really crappy piece of media, generally speaking.
Good religious game that I've actually played is Super Noah's Ark, which is basically Doom with a Noah's Ark skin. It was great. It was actually like Noah just turning around his ark and tranquilizing all the animals.
Yeah,
Noah had a real narc on that day.
I see.
So it's not real bad in there, to be fair.
Probably.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be. No, that'd be awful. But yeah, the character models he had for the characters in his Christian game were so bad. Somebody said you could probably make a horror game with those things.
He did.
So he did. So, but the fact that he had a Christian game before this as a failed side project, you think that would have given the goose away? And it's fairly public knowledge. It's not like he tried to hide it.
Well, the thing is that you can just gloss over something like that in America, because there are a lot of people who will identify themselves as being Christian without actually adhering to any Christian principles whatsoever, such as your president. But when it comes to the name Trump, that's radioactive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I dug up his full statement a while ago. I don't think I posted it, but he goes on about how you're not going to get me to stop being a Christian. You're not going to stop me from leaning conservative. These are my personal beliefs, and they have nothing to do with the game. But if you're going to start acting like this and threatening my family, I'm out. Go have fun with whoever I give it to, and I guarantee you they won't be as in touch with the community as I am after this, because they'll be afraid of you doing it to them.
Well, what reason is there to believe that any of those people who are cancelling him were even involved in that community? That's the sad part.
Yeah.
Because the people who make up the fandom of Five Nights at Freddy's, maybe most of them don't give a toss what his politics are, because they actually like the game.
Yeah.
But that's not what the cancel mobs are about. The cancel mobs aren't actually about accomplishing the thing that they do directly. What their objective is to create a paralyzing climate of fear in media production.
So yeah, and so he moved on and is not making the games anymore. I have 6 kids now, he says, although one of them is a newborn. He loves them dearly and are his whole world, and he's going to focus on protecting them, raising them, and making things for them. I asked my fan base to respect his decision, blah, 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 blah. I've had a blessed career, it goes on and on. But and somewhere in that blah, blah, blah was, and I made FU money. In lesser words.
So,
and more
on the other
words.
side of the fence, now you got Kovarex over at Factorio, Michael Kovarex. He put up the latest Friday Facts post, where he goes on. It's a very code programming heavy thing, so he's talking about everything going on behind the scenes, and he quotes something from. Let me just make sure I get the right person here.
He quotes code from this person, mind you. Not this person, but I think he quoted code.
Recommended the works of Uncle Bob or Robert Cecil Martin, who in the past, what did he do? He voted for Trump. That was it.
So he's literally a Nazi.
Yeah. So he allegedly made some sexist comments, said something in the favor of the police, and admitted to voting Trump. Sorry, no, he didn't vote Trump. He quoted Trump.
So the correct action is to disavow and slander this person rather than actually using his works in the way that they were intended.
Yes.
Which is, you know, oh well, he's got these coding techniques, etc.
Yeah, this is his coding, all that. Now, apparently, as I understand it, Bob actually sets a lot of the current industry standards for coding. So the guy knows his stuff, and anyone should be looking towards stuff. But because he quoted Trump that one time, he is now toxic, and because Kovarex recommended his work and mentioned his work, he is now also toxic.
So
He's
I'll
literally a fascist Nazi.
Yes.
I'll dump this in live show chat so y'all can see it. This is his first response to it. I think it was on the Reddit.
Yes. For those who are listening only, it is the most beautiful, succinct response to this kind of mealy-mouthed post about not promoting someone who, whatever, crap anyway. And Kovarex simply said, "Take the cancel culture mentality and shove it up your ass." Not the most diplomatic response, but definitely the correct
That is the correct response.
It is the correct response.
It is probably still better than they deserve.
Yeah.
They are trying to compel him. They're trying to compel him to agree with them. They do not see him as an individual. They see him as a servant at best.
And it's more that they're not demonizing for something he directly did. They're demonizing him for something that somebody else did that is unrelated, or largely unrelated, that he just happened to quote the unrelated and unconnected works of.
Yeah, well, they expect him to sit up and do what they say. Because they've gotten used to this from a lot of people on Twitter, right? Where they can throw a tantrum and say, no, you have to disavow this person because he said something about somebody who did this thing, who once walked by Trump in the lobby of a hotel or something.
Yeah.
And then that person will immediately kowtow and give some sort of disgusting, groveling apology, followed by a denunciation of all of that person's political enemies. But why? Why do people do this? Where does it pay off? It doesn't in the end. You can't stop the mob from coming for you.
So
it's never worked before. Nobody who has ever capitulated has ever gotten a payoff from it. It has always caused them suffering later down the line.
So
and as we can see from the chart I just posted, it may in fact have the opposite result and get you gangbusters positive reviews on Steam and purchases.
Yeah,
I mean, what this just goes to demonstrate is what I just said. It's a tiny minority of people, none of whom are involved in the fandom.
Yeah. So as a result of this, the cancel crowd did come to Steam and they tried to review bomb Factorio.
But as you can see with the chart, it didn't go so good.
It didn't go so good. If you actually go over there and have a look now, I had a look at it the day this happened, and it was immediate. There was just the overwhelming support for the developer.
Yeah, a cynical part of me says that this will probably be stronger motivation than anything else for Steam to just get rid of reviews, because they weren't willing to do it when people were getting cancelled, but when somebody gets promoted in spite of being cancelled, that's probably going to tick off some of their interns, who will then start sabotaging things, since apparently Valve has difficulty controlling the behavior of their interns who administer Steam. But yeah, I hope that this percolates through the culture, that, well, actually, people will respect you if you stick to your guns. They won't respect you if you bow down to them, because you haven't done anything deserving of respect. Like, it seems so bizarre to me that, you know, we're now in this era where when we talk about cancellations in games, we're not even talking about cancellations of games.
Yeah.
So
he appears to be fine and is not quitting like Scott did, and his response to this.
I get the distinct impression that he continues to make Factorio because he likes Factorio.
Yeah, everyone likes Factorio.
Whereas I think Five Nights at Freddy's has run its course.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if Scott was willing to be done with that project already.
Yeah. He was probably on his way out as it was. which is fine. So yeah, after this all blew up, Kovarex came out and he did give a much more verbose response that is all the more scathing, I think, but you can go read that for yourself.
Do you have a link for that one?
I do. It is in the post. I'll give it a quick read if you like.
I just wanted to have it so I could post it in the live show chat.
So yeah, you can. We'll put that in there for you. Go and take a read. All right. What is next?
I gotta get back to the show host board. Hang on.
That's all right. I'll post it. It's fine. Take a read of that article.
Where are we at? Here we go. I don't like anything that I'm seeing here.
Yeah, it's all right. We're actually well over time anyway, so we should probably consider wrapping up.
Right, yeah, the only real news that I saw this week, neither of them were the things that upset me enough to think about them were not, but neither of them were to do with video games, which is the live action adaptation of Made in Abyss.
That sounds horrific.
Everything needs to be ruined, and the debacle in Tabletop with the lapsing of the TSR trademark and it being purchased by Gary Gygax's son, and the Wokesters having an absolute conniption fit over it because he doesn't want to exclude people who are not their kind of people from Tabletop.
Yeah, everyone should be welcome to play Tabletop. It's the whole point.
Well, the thing is that's the line that they spin. That's been the arrow in the Wokesters' quiver. Is that they say that they are more inclusive than everybody else, and the best way to include people is to exclude everybody they don't like because those people are bigots.
Yeah, they fail to see the irony of that.
But when Gygax's son comes along and says, no, I actually want everybody to play, they get outraged because there are certain types of people who should not be permitted because they aren't inclusive. It's the whole chain of hysterics. It's still raging. Like, I went and had a poke around online this morning and it's still going. The amount of bitter bile coming out of the woke sector of Tabletop is unbelievable. So this is about... I mean, this is a fandom that is essentially about acting. It's about performance and storytelling. And they are absolutely attached to the real world in every possible way when it comes to the stories that you are allowed to tell and who is allowed to tell them.
Imagine that. You get a bunch of writers and role players together, and they don't exactly have the most tenuous grasp for reality. Who knew?
I did enjoy the fact that when Sargon and his crew heard that it was now verboten to play Vampire the Masquerade if you are a fascist, according to the rulebook. They decided that their next campaign was going to be them playing vampire Nazis. And so they ended up playing a campaign where they all played characters who are part of a secret Nazi project to have a squadron of vampires. And so they've got all these vampires who like 100% buy into the Nazi ideology.
Good.
Because you can't control these things, because Tabletop exists because of the people that play it. It doesn't exist because of rulebook makers.
Yeah, you don't have a goon squad you can send to every Tabletop player's house to enforce this rule.
They want one.
And you're not a program.
What if they could?
Yeah, well, you would if you could. You're not a game. You can't restrict how people play with code. You have to just kind of hope the players that pick up your game will follow the rules exactly as you want them to.
Even though people are traditionally encouraged not to.
Yeah, historically, people will begin homebrewing their system after their second or third time DMing.
And once they've had a few goes at that, they won't buy your products anymore. There won't be no need to.
Yeah,
so you're better off preserving your commercial validity by not ticking them off to begin with.
And yeah, you need to sell your product to the DMs, and if you say the DM can't homebrew or have any customization whatsoever or can't be X, the DM's not going to buy your product, and he's not going to sell it to all his friends.
Especially now, because you can go online and there's any number of just
Yeah,
open game systems.
Yeah, the open source ones are everywhere, and for people who don't like open source but are ticked off at a company, they can always go to Honest Bob.
Yeah.
Like, people purchase products to support the companies nowadays. In this modern era where information has value, has dollar value, and people can get it for free if they want it badly enough, they only give you money because they like you. And if you tell them that you don't like them, they won't give you their money anymore.
Spoiler alert, I know a website, I use a website actually very frequently when I do play, that is the entirety of all the 5e rules, with modular homebrew added in if you want to play a pugilist or Matt Mercer's lingering soul class, if you can figure out what on earth that's supposed to be about. But, yeah, all the rules are there. It's completely free.
Yeah, you are not stopping any DM from going to Honest Bob's and nabbing the PDF of your book if they really want it.
Yeah. So it pays to be loved by your people rather than hated, because they don't need you.
No.
Yeah, Bob's got an outpost everywhere.
They will go and they will make their own stories without you, with blackjack and hookers.
Which all DMs I still hear word are still alive of are doing.
Yeah.
Nobody is using the source books even for Dungeons and Dragons anymore. They might have them.
The source books are usually used by new groups that are starting out.
And they're a handy, quick reference.
That's what they're for.
A lot of things.
And if you don't know how to set up a rule for a particular thing, they can be handy to use as a template.
Yeah. So but for the most part, all the DMs I'm still aware of are all either homebrewing completely or just using the source as a light reference and homebrewing the rest of it.
Yeah, like I can see using them for something like, oh, I need some gold values for these common items or something like that. And most of that stuff is now open source anyway.
Yeah. But here's another hint, companies. DMs after a while start to really like to homebrew their stuff. So you really need them to love you to keep buying your product. Half of the fun of writing a system is writing the system.
I don't know, there might be these groups of people who just obsessively buy every new module that comes out of WotC or something, but I've never met such a person before.
Yeah, neither have I. I guess I know a guy who would buy them on Reflex just to have them, but I didn't ever play with that guy, so I don't know.
I do know a guy at work who's in a group who buy all of the Inc stuff, but they don't play it directly. They just use it as a sort of a baseline template to homebrew from, pretty much, because they like the role structure that they have in there for different people. So you've got one person who manages side quests and so on.
That's how my current group is. Like, my current character is basically running around with a whole bunch of fire spells that have been reskinned by homebrew. In our previous story, he actually created an entire paladin subclass. Just because.
Yeah, I think that a lot of these companies particularly have gotten a rather ennobled idea of their place in the ecosystem. It's just because Gygax himself had such a titanic influence on the way tabletop was done. Every other company that comes along thinks they can do the same thing, but no, that's done. The core tenets of tabletop were established long ago, and everything that's an elaboration on that is purely optional.
Yeah, tabletop's been a mess for so long. If I still had people to play with, I'm hesitant to go look for a group these days because I'm too close to Atlanta to feel safe doing so. Because I won't want to play with a woke DM, and I won't want to DM for a bunch of wokesters.
There's always online.
Yeah, so I would love to do online, but I also don't have time to go make friends online either.
You've got adulting to do.
Yeah.
All right, and with that, we should probably start looking at wrapping up.
Alrighty.
Yep. All right. Thank you for the email again, Serathis. And email topic of the week is whatever you want it to be. So a lot of stuff.
Now.
Yeah, no. You can go with the cancellations or the tabletop stuff. So, all right, closing comments. Let's go.
I don't want to adult anymore. But there are some good games out there still, even though there are people out there actively trying to destroy the industry. Just go play those.
I need to kill a few more monsters because I'm still trying to close in on the hunting rank 100.
Oh, I haven't played Monster Hunter last week, but I do need to go kill another Almudron just so I can get the leather pants of power.
No, you'll have to kill him not once but several times. The most he can drop at once is 2, and you need 4.
Whee!
He may just drop 1. You could, being Fern, you may have to kill him 4 times to get leather pants.
I will almost certainly have to kill him 4 times. Mind you, now that I don't need any more of those gems, he's going to shower me with them.
Yeah. That'd be how it works.
That is be how it be.
So, alrighty. I think we are done, folks. I'm just waiting for, I guess it's, when's the 29th? Is that Tuesday? Tuesday. That's when the rotation happens in Shadowverse and I can actually poke my head in ranked and see what plays like. Because I'm not playing until the rotation's happening when it's this close. I haven't made any cards either.
Every deck will be Cancer, don't worry.
I'm sure the top meta decks will be Cancer, but if after the rotation happens, I'm going to try to build around whatever the current meta is. That's always been what I do. If I think I have the ability to do so. So and yeah, the story mode will also give you a very good grasp of the cards if you use all the pre-built decks they give you. You don't have to have cards for story mode. You can use old pre-built decks from older rotations instead. So another note on that game if people are thinking of trying it out. So yeah, I think we done, folks. We'll see you next week. Sayonara. Bye bye.